This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's a windy, wild, hot, wacky Wednesday start to our afternoon drive as an African storm brews. This is Safari Live.
I am in the middle of one of the true wilderness areas left in the world.
This is the most mind-blowing wildlife experience you could ever hope to have.
You are live, you are live.
Good afternoon everyone and welcome to our sunset safari on this beautiful afternoon, and hopefully this chance of rain will arrive at some point as well, as we desperately need it. Now my name is Tristan and on camera today I've got Senzo Three Fingers as normal, and it is going to be an interesting afternoon with the storm that was brewing the whole kind of day. I wonder if we aren't going to get a little bit of rain later. Maybe you can send your predictions through on hashtag Safari Live or YouTube chat. That's how you get hold of us. And if you don't want to send any predictions, well, you can ask some questions or just say hello from wherever you're watching. Now my plan for this afternoon is I'm going to head towards Chitra, because this morning in my stricken state with my punctured tire I heard monkey's alarm calling and had tracks for leopard and heard signs of leopard, so we're going to go and head in that direction for this afternoon and try and see if we can find it. I believe Hyena was seen last night around Chitra camp, so that's probably where we're going to head. But before we do all of that, we've got to do a few time lapses, so we're going to go quickly to Treehouse Dam, and that is the plan for this afternoon. That's at least what we're going to try and accomplish. Whether or not we're going to be lucky, I'm not quite sure. I'm hoping that we will be, and maybe with the storm that will hopefully roll in a little bit later after the drive, because we don't want a big massive storm during drive, because that might just put a bit of a dampener on things. But hopefully the storm will come back towards the late part of the drive and into the evening, and we'll get an amazing sort of lightning display to finish up our drive. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. A leopard in a tree with the stormy clouds in the background would also not go amiss, that is for sure. Now I do apologize if I'm squinting. For some reason it feels very glary out here this afternoon. It's probably because it's been quite cloudy the last little bit, and being out now and out of FC where it's been nice and dark is a little bit bright, so I do apologize if I'm squinting a little bit. But while I kind of negotiate my way to Treehouse Dam and see what's lurking around that area, let's go across to my friend Noelle, who seems as though she's had a long day. She went out towards town and has come back again, and I'm sure she's got a few stories for all of you, and let's go see what she's got to say.
Good afternoon, and yes, thank you, my friend Tristan. Town was town. I thought it was going to hail, but as you can see, no rain, no hail, thank goodness. I am Noelle. We are live, we are interactive. You can ask us questions, hashtag Safari Live on the Twitter, or follow us on the YouTube chat. And with me, I've got Vildy on camera, back from leave, nice and refreshed, and in a fabulous, fabulous mood. Okay, I had homework from yesterday, and part of my homework had to deal with ducks and geese. So Vildy and I have found you some ducks/geese. All right, Egyptian geese that are really ducks. So we talked briefly about plumage yesterday, with ducks having brighter plumage than geese, and then geese having a longer neck, and a few other things. But the sort of big difference that I've been searching for, a dear friend of me helped me answer as I was scouring my books and couldn't find what I wanted. True geese have a spur on the carpal part of their wing, and ducks do not. So that is the main difference. And so part of the misname with this goose that's really a duck has to do with the fact that it does not have the spur. So we should be seeing, hopefully, spur-winged geese soon. It is coming into the time when we do see them. And for all of you going, Noelle, what is a spur-winged goose and why are you babbling on about them? Let me show you a photo. All right, this beautiful thing here at the top is a spur-winged goose, and they fight with the spurs, the males, with those on the sort of edge right around in there. So that was my homework. from yesterday. Thank you all very much. You guys know that I'm learning so much with everybody here and with all of your excellent questions. All right, our plan, Billy and I were just talking about it now, our plan is to head to Twin Dams and then maybe over towards Chitra Cut Line and then maybe up to Biffles Hook Dam. But as you all know, I always give you my plan and then I end up getting tracks or something else catches my very short attention span and we meander off in a completely other direction. So as we are meandering towards Twin Dams, Steph is off on his own 2 feet and he would like to say hello. Let's head on over to him.
Hello and good afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Bushwalk part of this particular safari. I'm Steph Winterboer and today we've got a rare treat. We've got Xander on camera today for the bushwalk, and there in the background we have got some wildebeest that we've been trailing for the last couple of minutes. It's a rare sight to see that many wildebeest in the Sabi Sands here in the southern part of the Kruger National, well, in the middle part of the Kruger National Park in the southern part of Africa. And the reason for that is that this particular type of bush isn't really conducive to large herds of anything, let alone large herds of wildebeest, which we so, oh well, I would say that we're so used to seeing, but I mean, I think I'm being spoilt and a little bit of a brat by saying that, but that we are used to seeing in the Mara up in Kenya, where there, the wide open plains and the lack of any very thick forests has led to massive herds developing. Well, as part of it anyway. We've got some, I don't exactly know how many wildebeest here, but there's a good dozen or so wildebeest. They are keeping their distance from us, unfortunately, and so what we can do is perhaps speed up just a little bit through here, just to see if we can see them. There's just the backs of them. The reason why they're keeping a little bit more space to us right now is the fact that the wind is blowing from us onto them, and so we're in a bad place from a wind direction point of view, and they're getting this big nostril full of soap, lunch, and whatever else I've been rolling around in and washing my hands with today. And it's not that nice for a wildebeest. There you go. Now you'll notice immediately that different to the Kenyan wildebeest, this wildebeest is a little bit bigger, although for the life of me I cannot find any reference to comparative weights. And you'll also notice that it doesn't have a white beard. And that is because the wildebeest that we're used to seeing in Kenya have they are a subspecies, and they're called the white-bearded gnu, whereas these are commonly called the brindled gnu. Both blue wildebeest, or blue gnu, and there's not much to distinguish between them, at least from a genetic point of view, with the exception that the ones in Kenya, as far as I'm concerned, are a little bit smaller, and then they obviously have that very distinguishable white beard and flowing mane that comes off of the neck. Let's see if we can get one more view of them before they run off too far into the distance. Let's see if we can get you a nice shot of a big one, or at least a larger one, so that you can quickly snap off a screenshot and compare it to the ones that you've got of the wildebeest in Kenya. Now that is very typical of wildebeest to hang around with the impala. You may have noticed that they are, even though they've been moving through the bush, they've been moving through the bush together. That's because they really feed on different parts of the plant, plants, I should say. In the wildebeest's case, they feed on grass. On the impala's case, in this particular time of year, they're feeding off of new leaves and shoots as well as some grass. And so they're not in competition with one another for exactly the same food resources. And so having more eyes and ears around one another just helps to look out for those predators. And in an area like this, which is very densely wooded, comparatively speaking, to the open plains of Africa, it's easy for a lion or a leopard to sneak up on an unsuspecting wildebeest or impala, and therefore having more of you around basically allows to see predators far easier. All right, we're going to leave them alone. We don't want to chase them around too much into the bush, and so we're going to send you over to Tristan, who's just busy driving around here this afternoon.
I was driving around, Steph. I've come to a stationary stop, and the reason for that is because there is a vulture sitting up above me, and it's in its nest once again. So this is our little juvenile. I will call it a juvenile now because it's starting to look and resemble an adult quite a lot. Unfortunately, it's a bit glary behind it because of the white cloud, but there sits our young vulture. It's far more upright than the last time we were here, which is in that cold, dreary weather, and it was all kind of hunkered down in its nest and trying to stay nice and warm, whereas now you can see it's up and it's standing and it's looking around, and it looks very much like an adult. In fact, if you didn't know that there was a nest here, you'd probably think that it is a older bird than what it actually is now, and so it is starting to really develop quite nicely. Now, of course, this vulture, as we know, is a white-backed vulture, and so these white-backed vultures, typical for them is to nest during the winter months here in South Africa, and then they raise their chicks all the way through. Now, the thing about it is that it's a very long process for a vulture. Some of the birds that we have out here, they, from sort of laying egg until the bird is fledged and off on its own and under its own care, can sometimes be between sort of 30 and 40 days, so very, very short. Whereas with a vulture, from laying of egg until the time that this vulture leaves the nest can be close to 220 days, so it's almost a year, well, 3/4 of a year that we can call it, that these poor adults have to look after this bird, and they have to go back and forth and fill up their crops and provide nutrients for these young birds, and it takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort. Also, that coupled with the fact that there's only generally one chick because they kill each other in the nest means that the vulture numbers don't escalate very quickly, and that's why it's such a concern that we're losing vultures at the rate that we are currently, and we're losing them far too quickly for them to be able to replenish their own stocks and for them to be a positive growth that's going on. Now, you might be wondering what causes a lot of our vultures to die. Well, most of it is actually, funny enough, them flying into electrical lines. So because we have put up these massive big electrical pylons all the way through South Africa and various parts of Africa, there's a lot of bird strikes that take place with vultures. They tend to fly into these electrical cables and they get all tangled up, and obviously they die from that. And then now lately there's been a big spate of poisoning, and it's for the sort of black market. You find a situation where their heads and their feet and wings and all kinds of bits of them are utilized in all different ways, and so unfortunately they are poisoned en masse by that, or in that process. The other big problem that we've got is we've got a number of farmers that border these areas that have wildlife, and you then get things like leopard and jackals and caracals that get out, and they unfortunately kill a lot of livestock, and so farmers sometimes will poison carcasses to try and poison that individual, and unfortunately vultures and battalier eagles and any sort of scavenger gets caught up in this whole process and is poisoned and unfortunately then expires. So it's a big problem, and there's a lot of stuff going into trying to get vultures' name out there, and particularly to dispel this connotation of a horrible, dirty, ugly animal. Unfortunately, vultures suffer a lot of the effects of being portrayed as ugly birds, and much like hyenas in the mammal world, they're seen as these horrible individuals. Just because they eat rotting meat doesn't mean that they are horrible things, and it doesn't mean that they are not vitally important to what we have out here. Without these guys, we would have a massive amount of disease that would be out, rotting flesh all over the place, which, as we know, can produce a lot of flies and all kinds of other things, and so they are hugely important to our ecosystem, and losing them is a very, very big problem. So we need to try and protect them as much as possible, and it's sad because most of the vulture species now have been added to endangered species lists, and which is not really a very good thing at all. So that's why it's encouraging when we get a chick like this that has done so well and is raising to this point, and hopefully will leave the nest as a fully fledged adult at some point. Francis, you want to know how long before it leaves the nest? Well, Francis, difficult to say because I'm not quite sure the exact day that it hatched out of its egg. So my rough estimate is somewhere around January, I would imagine. Might be a little bit before that, but December, January, maybe into February if things don't go according to plan, but that's where I roughly estimate that it should be. So we know that this, I think, was first seen at the end of June, if I'm not mistaken, or beginning of July by Byron, and it was a tiny little chick at that stage. And so if we kind of work out 180 days from there, it should be around December, January, somewhere in that general vicinity. So hopefully around there. We'll keep checking on it and keep monitoring it, because eventually we will see it doing short little flights from here, and it'll then come back and land, and it'll hop about, and it'll do all kinds of things from this particular section. And so hopefully we'll be able to kind of monitor its progress. Once it takes off and it leaves this nest without actually tagging it or anything like that, it's going to be virtually impossible to follow who this vulture is. We see a lot of different vultures here, and so once it's gone from the nest, unfortunately, that's going to be it in terms of following its progress. But at least we can see a day-to-day life of a vulture and kind of come back and forth, and I'm sad in a way that I haven't found any interaction between the adults and the young one since I've been watching this nest. Every time I come here, either the adults have already been and they've been sitting for quite some time, or the adults aren't here. I would really like to see a situation where an adult lands and comes to this chick and there's that whole interaction and greeting and feeding process that happens. But we can only try and deal with what we're given, and hopefully one day we will get to see it in the next few days, and hopefully there'll be a carcass nearby that's fairly large that vultures can feed off, and maybe from there we'll see it coming back to the nest at some point. Right, but we're going to leave our vulture to itself, let it enjoy its afternoon. I'm sure it's very, very happy because that it hasn't rained and lightning and thunder and stormy weather has now gone, because if you're a vulture and a bird, wet feathers can't be very pleasant, and ultimately they don't have a roof over their head, so having a wet home would mean that it would be a long damp evening. So we're going to try and negotiate quickly this mitre drain. There we go. Now, I haven't been to Treehouse Dam yet. I'm still on my way there. I'm just kind of checking areas that I haven't driven for quite some time. I haven't been down this way since Shadow and Cub had that kill on Zoe's, and so I just want to scratch around and see maybe Shadow and Cub's tracks somewhere in this area. We haven't seen them for a few days, so I wouldn't mind just having a look around and maybe get lucky with them somewhere here. I also know that they like to move towards Treehouse Dam via the fire break or somewhere from Shabamu side, and so it makes sense just to check this area and just thoroughly comb around and make sure that there isn't some sign of them in this area before we move on and go somewhere else. Like I say, I am going to head to Chitra, but I'm waiting for the Chitra guests to get out of the lodge because I don't want to go scratching around their lodge for a leopard when there's guests in camp. Might be an awkward moment if we come around a bend and there's somebody using the outdoor shower, as has happened to me before at many of these camps. It's not ideal, but it does happen, and it's some entertaining stories, I can tell you that, of coming around the front of lodges and finding things that you really didn't want to see, as you can all imagine. Now, while I contemplate the atrocities that I've seen in my time as a guide in front of camps, let's cross over to Steph and see what he's up to, where he's heading this afternoon, and what his plans are. I'm sure there'll be something interesting along the way. There generally is with Steph. I'm sure he's looking forward to looking for lots of little things in the afternoon heat after a thunderstorm.
It's actually funny that Tristan said that, because exactly as he said it, we were debating whether or not we should walk in front of a camp right now. Amazing, eh? Like mines, I suppose. The little insect that you have buzzing into and out of the screen over there is actually a species of bee and is attracted to the reflection of the light. But it's a stingless bee called a mopani bee, and they live in this particular area. They live both in cavities in the wood and in cavities that they excavate in the ground, and can get infuriating. Now, they do produce a very nice honey, and in some folklore they say you can actually get drunk on the honey that they feed off of, or the nectar that they feed off of is from poisonous plants, and that then is distilled in their honey and can create intoxicating effects. I've never had mopani bee honey, so I can't comment on that specific trait, so until proven otherwise, let's just say it's true, right? Now, I'm looking for something small here in the sunlight. It is a troop of dwarf mongoose that ran away from us because they got a fright. But I don't think that I think they were just moving away from the fact that we're strange. I don't think that they didn't look terrified. There they are moving there. So come with me a little bit and let's see if we can show you one of them. It takes a long time to habituate mongoose to people on foot. Okay, I see where they are resting up for the day. So there's a termite mound in the back over there. You can just see it sticking out behind the guari bush, and in one of the cavities in the side of that termite mound is a little face of a dwarf mongoose. And Xander's going to do a heroic effort of trying to focus through a moving bush for you. We'll see if we can get a little bit closer. Now, very different to how animals perceive us on foot. How animals perceive us in the vehicle to how animals perceive us on foot. And that's because bipedal man is the most aggressive, most violent and most vicious predator on the face of the earth. And animals that have basically stood in our way are extinct. And at a genetic level, I feel at least anyway, most animals have an instinctive fear of bipedal man, whereas man sitting in a car for the last 100 years has done nothing to any of these animals here. They've been protected in the Kruger National Park, and I think this is about as close as we can get. What we'll do is we will just sit and focus on that termite mound. Alright, we're going to see if these dwarf mongoose relax a little bit more at our presence. And in the meantime, why don't you go and have a look at what Noelle's looking at.
All right, amazingly, this tiny little slope has not run away. Usually they see us, they stop for half a second and then bolt. But she has laid down in the shade, in the grass, not far from us, maybe about 8 meters. This is a tiny little female steenbok. So steen in Afrikaans means brick. So this is a brick-colored bok, and a bok is an antelope. And she is territorial with her lifelong mate. You don't always see them together, but you can from time to time. And they'll both territorial in the area. Then there she bolts. Ooh! So that's what she usually does. We are so lucky. Oh, Vildi, your camera work. Brilliant. Oh, you see, she stops and she's checking everything out. She's listening probably to me talking. You can see that beautiful coloration. And now she's decided she's fine and gonna have something to eat. So the steenbok are grazers. They eat grass. And they do something that's really interesting that I've only personally seen a handful of times. You don't always catch them do it. When they mark their territory using their dung, they go to the toilet and then they push the sand up around it, similar to what your house cat would do inside the litter box. And she's grooming herself a little bit there. And it's a very interesting behavior for an antelope to have. It's not a normal antelope species behavior at all. And it has to do with the small size of their territories and wanting to make sure that they mark their territory for other steenbok, but also cover up the scent so that predators aren't immediately aware that they're there. In a very sort of brief explanation of why they do that. So with tiny little antelopes like this, steenbok, duiker, klipspringer, and I believe dik-dik as well. We don't get dik-dik here, but you should see dik-dik up in the Mara, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. The females will be larger than the males, and part of that has to do with them having to carry their young and just needing to have a little bit larger body size. So another way to tell would be horns. She doesn't have horns, but he would have horns. And they're tiny, 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 tiny. She's being nice to stick around. So her coloration and the way that she appears, even the inside of her ears, which we could briefly see just then, all of that is for camouflage and for blending in. And you saw when she was sitting in the grass in the beginning, she really can get herself down. The grass covers most of her body, and then the ears coming up and giving a little bit, I wouldn't quite call it disruptive marking, but a similar scenario would be that disruptive marking. So we are very lucky here. We see quite a few steenbok, and we also see quite a few duiker. Usually in the low feld, you would see more duiker over steenbok, and then other places I've worked, more steenbok over duiker. And duikers are browsers, and then the steenboks are grazers we talked about. So it has a lot to do just with the type of vegetation that's around and the dominant type of vegetation. Fantastic! We never get to see steenbok for that long, so that's a special little sighting. Sorry. Steph is making friends with mongoose apparently over on his walk, so let's head back to him and see what he has to say.
And what we've done is we've sat down pretty close to this particular mound where these mongoose have been holed up in. And of course their natural curiosity has asserted itself. And you can see one just sticking his head up there watching me. Now, I'm not facing this particular termite mound because that'll be a little bit too antagonistic. But I'm just sitting sideways to them, and they cannot help but come out and have a look at what we're doing. Obviously very quick to disappear if I make the slightest wrong move. Because I'm not getting any closer, there's a good chance that they just stick their heads out again and have a look at us. Now, every single day these dwarf mongoose will find a new place to go and sleep, and that's because they make quite tasty morsels for a bunch of different predators. And so within their home range, which they defend quite actively against other families of mongoose, they will have a bunch of these sleeping holes, and they will spend the evenings in there. They're not nocturnal, they're diurnal, and they come out late in the morning. They enjoy having the odd suntan in the morning on the side of a termite mound, and then spend the day foraging for invertebrates mainly, but will take on snakes, will take on birds' eggs and lizards. And as we saw the other day with Noel, they're not shy of tackling some of the most dangerous snakes in Africa. For those of you who didn't see that particular piece of footage, we saw a troop of mongoose, dwarf mongoose, chase a very large black mamba, which is one of the most venomous of our African snakes and one of the most dangerous as well, up into the top of a tree. And only when the mongoose went away did the snake decide to come down and carry on with its day, and looked quite wary as well. So I think this has proven too much now for this particular mongoose troop. I don't even hear them making any of their alarm calls anymore. So before we stress them out anymore, I think, why don't we move on? Let them carry on. There's not a lot of grubs and insects around at the moment. It's still the beginning of summer, and they're going to need all the time that they can get to try and feed. I don't want to steal any of that feeding time from them. It's nice to spend time with animals on foot, especially if you're having a little or limited amount of an impact on the way that they do and go about their day. I tend to judge the way we do these walks, and in particular the interactions that we have with these animals, based on how much reaction those animals are having to us. I consider a 10 out of 10 walk being able to get close to and be part of a particular animal's space, but without them even knowing you're there. And I consider a total and utter failure when we have animals react to our presence and react aggressively to us. Now, Deadhead Com, you'd like to know if I've ever had an animal chase me on bushwalk? Most certainly. That ideal of not having not having a violent interaction with animals or an aggressive reaction from animals is an ideal, and not often achieved, because animals' senses are so much better than ours that sometimes you just stumble into things without actually knowing. And I suppose the closest shave I've ever gotten in my life was a couple of years ago, where we were looking at a track of a civet on the floor, and an elephant had heard us coming down the road, but because we had stopped making a noise, he came walking down the road to see what we were doing. And by the time he came around the bend and we had stood up from the civet track, we were way too close to one another, and he was in must and decided that we were definitely not needed in that particular piece of the bush, and he chased us around for a good 20, it felt like a good 400 hours, to be honest. It couldn't have been more than 10 or 12 minutes or so, eventually resulting in him scattering the group of people that I was with into the bush. I had to dive off the end of this drainage bed and onto the sand. I left people in the bush all over the place. Definitely not a highlight in my guiding career, in my professional guiding career. And we were lucky to escape with our lives. The elephant was lucky to escape without me having to shoot him. And so, I mean, all in all, it was good, but it was definitely a very, very close shave. I was nervous of doing bushwalks for a couple of weeks after that. This is quite nice. This is a natural insect repellent called Osmum canum, or wild basil, and you pick the leaves like this, and then you just rub it on your feet where you're most likely to encounter ticks, which is always at these sock protectors that I have, and it acts as a natural insect repellent. It's got this lovely sort of sweet basil smell, and then is apparently repellent for ticks. All right, we're going to carry on looking for something awesome to show you, and you're off to Tristan.
Well, you are indeed, and a very, very, very warm welcome to the 3 schools that have just joined us this afternoon. So to Glenwood, Brookwood and North Landing Elementaries, it's wonderful to have you along with us this afternoon, and I hope that you're going to enjoy the next 45 minutes as we try and show you as many wonderful things in Africa as possible. My name is Tristan, and on camera today I do have Senzo, and so remember, this is interactive, which means you guys can ask every question that you have about all the animals and all the wonderful things that we're going to see this afternoon, and you can just ask the questions to your teachers, and your teachers will then send them to us, and we'll try and answer as many as possible. Now, what I'm trying to do this afternoon is I'm trying to find a leopard, but it's still very warm, and so what I'm doing is just driving along some of the water holes, trying to check where there's water, because often on a hot day like this, animals will come and drink water. The other reason why I'm here is because this morning I saw an impala that was in this area that was very pregnant, and I think that it might have had a little baby, and so I'm trying to see if I can find it somewhere here. We spotted one just now running along, and so maybe, just maybe, we can find it. Senzo, can you see it or not? So Senzo is busy looking around that side. Maybe Senzo has spotted something. I'm not quite sure. What have you got there, Senz? Is it a bird, Senz? Oh, there we go. So Senzo's got a woodpecker. Now, it's a bearded woodpecker that's all the way in the distance. Can you see that? Isn't that amazing? So this woodpecker is going to go along the tree like this, and it's going to use its sharp beak to try and headbutt the tree effectively and chisel its way into a tree. So it's going to dig its way in to try and get beetles that have laid their larvae inside there, and these little beetles go inside the wood, and it makes a perfect place for woodpeckers to find food, because woodpeckers love beetles for lunch. And it's interesting because woodpeckers have a very, very, very special way that they're able to hit their head against the tree and not get a headache. I don't know if you've ever hit your head against something, and you'll maybe know that your head gets very, very sore if you hit your head hard against something. Now imagine trying to do that against a tree all day long. So woodpeckers have to have funny things in place to be able to keep them from being hurt. And one thing that they do have that helps a lot is their tongue. Now their tongue is very, very long. It's much longer than our tongues, and their tongue actually goes from the back of their head. So it starts here and it goes over their head like this, all the way down, and then through their beak and into their mouth like that. And so that means that when they hit, that tongue acts as a cushion, and so it doesn't hurt as much. Also, their brain is inside a fluid, and so as they hit, the brain can move without actually hitting up against the skull and causing any damage to the brain. It's very, very clever. And then once they find a little hole, and they've made a hole and they've found what they're looking for, they'll stick that long tongue inside there, and then they grab that little insect and they pull it back out again. Isn't that a wonderful way to find food, and a very clever way to keep your head from being sore all day long? Unfortunately though, our woodpecker has flown away, and so I'm going to try and see if I can find our little impala, because hopefully it's got a tiny, tiny baby. It's this time of year that they do give birth to the little ones. North Landing, you want to know if the wildebeest migration occurs here in South Africa. So no, it doesn't occur here, unfortunately, but we do have a couple of guys up in the Maasai Mara. Unfortunately today they're not out with us. They're having the afternoon off, and so they're not with us, but we do have guys that are up there that are filming the migration. It's also not the right time of year for the migration now in Kenya where we are, so it has a situation where the wildebeest will go out of Kenya normally in around August, September, October, and so now in November unfortunately the migration's not there. But that's up further north from us, way away from where we are, about 2,500 miles away, so it's a long way away, and those animals are moving around in that system. So hopefully next year we'll be able to show you the migration when we're in Kenya again, and hopefully we'll be able to see it then. But where we are now, unfortunately not. What's that, Senz? So I thought Senzo spotted something, but he says nope, nothing, he's all good. Now where is my impala? I'm sure it's here somewhere. Yes, Hannah, the woodpeckers will most definitely peck different trees. So what you'll find is they'll go onto a tree, and they like trees that have had some little bit of elephant damage. So when I say elephant damage, what I'm talking about, I'll show you just now. Just let me show you these two animals that are running away quickly. Those are called duikers. So duikers are a small antelope. They're probably the size of a medium-sized dog, so a very, very small dog, and they run around, and they're the second smallest antelope that we have out here. That's a fully grown adult that we've got that just ran away, and there was actually 2 of them. But I was talking about woodpeckers and trees and what they feed off. So I was saying that they like trees that have a bit of damage that the elephants have made. Now, there's a big tall tree to my left here, and on that tree you'll see that there's a little bit of bark that has been torn away by the elephants, because the elephants, they like to eat bark, and so they dig their tusk in and they pull the bark off. And what that does is that means that the bark which protects the tree is no longer there, and that allows for the insects to be able to eat their way into the wood and where they then sit. And so the woodpecker will go and find trees like this wherever there's some wood that is exposed, and those insects that are in there, and then it will go and try and feed off them. So they'll feed off all kinds of different trees looking for insects and various beetles and grubs that they can find inside there. But not all woodpeckers that we get in this area feed off the trees. There are some woodpeckers that we get here, like the Bennett's woodpecker, that will feed on the ground, and that woodpecker will try and find ants and termites and those kind of things, and it will peck little holes in the ground looking for food. So not all of them feed out of the trees. Right, we're going to leave that tree alone. That tree is still healthy. The elephants didn't manage to damage that one too much. Now, I'm not the only one out here this afternoon. I've got a very good friend who is driving around, and she is out and about also in the Sabi Sands looking for all kinds of wonderful things, and she's been telling me that she's very excited to say hello to all of you. So let's go across and see what she's up to and what she's looking for today.
Hello everyone. Hello North Landing, Brockwood and Glenwood Elementaries. Thank you for joining us. So I believe today you are talking about habitats and adaptations and structures in the environment. My name is Noelle. We are interactive, so you can send us questions as much as you would like. And on camera I have Vildy saying hello, thumbs up. So don't forget hashtag Safari Live on the Twitter and YouTube chat. Oh, but before I carry on anymore, Tristan has something really, really special to show you. I'm going to head you back over to my friend Tristan, who has something teeny tiny and very cute.
Look at this. I was saying that we saw an antelope here today called an Impala that was pregnant, and I thought it was going to have a baby today. And look, there's the little baby. It's only a few hours old. I would say not even 3 or 4 hours. It's still a little bit wet in places. Mom hasn't quite cleaned it off just yet, and it's still very shy. So it's going to try and find some shade where it can hide away and start to drink some of Mom's milk to get nice and strong. But isn't that amazing? When we're little babies, I don't know if any of you have some brothers or sisters that are still very small, you'll know that it's difficult for us to walk or to be able to talk or to do any of those things. But with the impalas, because there's lots of predators here like lions and leopards and hyenas and wild dogs, it means that the little babies have to be able to move very early, and so they are born, and within 5 minutes the little baby is starting to struggle to its feet, and within about 15 minutes it's already starting to run, which is very, very cool. So I'm going to go around. There's a little corner here that we might be able to see and might get a better view. Colin, you're wondering if there are any animals that are blending in the bushes. I think that's what the question was. I hope I got that right. But yes, there are many animals. A lot of animals here, we won't even see them. So we'll get things like leopards that are really well camouflaged, that are shy, and they'll hang around in the thickets, and it takes a lot of effort to spot them. Or we'll get snakes or scorpions or lizards or birds that are all very well camouflaged and very difficult to see. Now I'm going to try and stop just a little bit forward here because I think the little baby might be visible from here. Let's just try. There's lots of trees in the way. There we go, Senzo. Can you see all right there? I know it's not great because there's lots of trees, but this little baby is so cute. Just to the left. Oh, it's gone behind the termite mound now. So it's going forward a little bit. I'm going to try. There's another little gap that I'm going to try and see. You can see Mom is still a little bit nervous. Normally we'll find a thing with these adults will try and kind of just sit and watch us. They're not too worried about where we are, but when they've got babies, they tend to move along quite quickly and they don't really sit for very long at all. So I'm going to stop here a little bit ahead and maybe I'll get lucky and we'll be able to see. Now, Macy, you want to know how the antelopes get away from predators. Well, Macy, they are very fast. These antelopes are running at close to 50 miles an hour, and that's faster than what a leopard can run. And so the antelopes will, if they spot a leopard, will try and run away and get out of the area. But also antelope have very good eyesight and very good ears. Look at the size of their ears compared to their head. Very large ears to be able to hear what's going on, and a big eye to be able to see what's happening. And so they can pick up predators very well, and they're always looking out for danger. And you see, look, Mom is giving it a little bit of a grooming. And I was saying earlier that it hasn't quite been cleaned by Mom just yet, so Mom will keep cleaning it and just groom it and get rid of any of the sort of fur that's not supposed to be there or any bit of afterbirth that is on it, and make sure that it is clean. But look, you see it's still wobbly. How cute is that? Right, now our little baby is going into some shade and into a little thicket where it's going to try and hide away from us, and I don't want to stress it any more than we have already, and so I'm going to move away from this area. But while I move away, Noelle has found the biggest and the most amazing animals that we get out here in the African bush.
How cute was that baby impala? And baby impala are the cutest things ever. All right, but we have some more cuteness. Not as tiny by any means as those impala, but we have some elephants for you. So elephants are very interesting. I know you all are also talking about habitats. Elephants are the architects of the bush. So they're the ones that dictate, in general, when all the ecosystems are functioning properly. They dictate how the environment looks. So they uproot large trees, push them over. They deposit dung that will have fruits from trees that helps to establish new species coming up. They play an important role. So their habitat is very varied. They live from the deserts of Namibia to the plains of Amboseli in East Africa and Maasai Mara to our what we call the bushveld or the low veld down here. So veld is a field or an area, and then bush being bushes, and then low meaning where we reside compared to sea level, so the low veld area. So they're busy moving in an interesting pattern because the marula trees have started to fruit. So the marulas are not quite ripe yet, but they are investigating the trees that they're going to. Vildi is reading my mind perfectly. He is showing you a beautiful marula tree. What they love to do is they love to eat the bark, but this time of year it is definitely the fruits, and the fruits have a lot of vitamin C. So that female, not the one that's walking there, the one that's just behind that one, we'll see her again just now, is busy picking up those fruits off the ground. Isabella, you're curious about why elephants like bark. So Isabella, everything that an elephant eats has a nutritional value, and different times of the year have different nutritional values. So the bark, especially in times when there's no leaves or fruit, with a lot of the trees they like to eat, is going to be very, very sweet and full of yummy nutrients for them to get. So that is why they like the bark. They also like roots, and they like tubers, similar to potatoes, and they like grass, and as I said before, leaves. Kiddos, I just want to back up because we're going to get a really great visual of them coming past our vehicle. And now remember, we are watching wild animals in the wild, but they are used to us as part of their natural environment. They see us as something that always occurs here, and we work very hard to keep that happening. So we are going to position for them to come past, and you'll be able to enjoy. I'm sorry, Chris, can you just repeat the name and the question one more time for me, please? Adeline, you're wondering if I get out of the vehicle and pet the animals. Adeline, no, we don't do that. These are wild animals. They're not pets. They're also not animals that have been put through the interesting procedures of being very closely associated with humans. These are in their natural habitat. So if I were to get out of the car now and walk towards those elephants would be so upset. So I was saying earlier that they're used to our presence, but we have what's a sort of contract with them, a social contract. So basically, I respect their personal space and they respect my personal space. If I get out of my vehicle and go up and try and touch them, they are going to say, hey, listen, that is way too close to my personal space. Please back off, please go away. And in return for me not misbehaving that way, they come up and walk past the vehicle and move around us and function with us as part of their environment without being too extra cheeky. Look, every individual personality is different. But yeah, and it's very important to remember as well with these wild animals, as much as you would like to go up and interact with them as the similar way you would do with your pet dog, your pet cat, they need to be respected on a bit of a higher level, because of the importance that they have within keeping our environments healthy and our ecosystems healthy as well. It's a really interesting topic, Adeline, about how much interaction we should have with wildlife, and something that's pretty in depth, and everyone has their own different opinions on it, but for us, we are observing and then teaching as opposed to forcibly interacting, if that makes sense. If you have more questions, please let me know. Kaylin, so you're asking, what do elephants use their horns for? So, Kaylin, elephants don't have horns, they have tusks, which you can see Vildy's just focused in nicely on those tusks. Those tusks are your two front teeth. So I'm touching my two front teeth right now. You guys can touch your two front teeth. That's what's coming out. A horn, rhinos have on the front of their face a horn, and then impalas have horns. They're different things. The horn on the front of a rhino is made up of the same material as your hair or your fingernails, very tightly woven together. A horn on an antelope species is bone that comes out of the skull, and then it's covered in what's called a keratin sheath. So that same material that your hair and your fingernails are made out of and what the rhino horn is made over makes a hard sheath around that horn. So these tusks that are on the elephant, or tush if you prefer, are used for defense and for fighting, but they're used more for eating. So they'll take a tush and they'll rip it up the side of a tree to help loosen the bark, and then they take their trunk and rip the bark off and then eat it. They also use it when they're busy trying to take leaves or branches off of trees to sort of stabilize it, because they have 2 arms and 2 legs. I know it looks like they have 4 legs, but the way that the joints are is it's 2 arms and 2 legs. But they don't have hands like we have. So they have a trunk to help them, and they have a tush to be able to help them. But there are some elephants who never grow tush, similar to us humans. Some of us grow wisdom teeth, and some of us don't. That same idea. Avery, you're curious about why the elephant is flapping its ears. You guys are asking the best questions today. Keep them coming. I'm loving them. So elephants get hot just like we get hot. When we get hot, we sweat. Elephants don't sweat. They need to be able to cool themselves down though. And so what they're doing is they're flapping their ears, and behind the ear is a lot of veins. And every time they flap the ear like that, it's helping the blood circulate, which is cooling their body down. So they lose about 82% of their entire body heat through their ears. I don't know if any of you live in cold climates. When it's winter time and it's cold and snowing by you, if you live in those areas, and your mother tells you to put a hat on your head to keep you warm, that's because we also lose a lot of the heat, not just from sweating, but from the top of our head. So if you're hot, don't wear a hat. If you're cold, put a hat on, and that will help. So it's similar with the elephants, flapping when they're cold, when they're hot, and then when they're cold, they put their ears flat. It is very humid and hot today, so that's why those ellies are flapping their ears. just confirm for me, Kirst, it's Gracie. All right, Gracie, you're wondering if elephants migrate and go to other places. Gracie, that's a super good question. So all of the movements that elephants use, they don't have a territory, they just have what is called a home range. And within that home range, they've got areas that they go to in summer and areas that they use more in winter. And that has to do with the type of food resources that they have. So for us, in the area that we're in, the ranges for the elephants, the home ranges for the elephants, are based upon seasons that are, we've got a really long summer, a really short winter, and barely a spring or a fall. And so it's basically what's fruiting and when, where is the good grass and when, where do we get bark and roots when, etc., etc. But somewhere like Botswana, there's places in Botswana that during our dry season, which is our winter season, it is so dry that there's nothing, there's no water, there's no food, so they have to move really far distances to get to places where there's food or water. And the matriarch, who's the head of the breeding herd, she will know exactly where to go. So they don't migrate like wildebeest do, but they have a memory, a very good memory of where all of the good food and water is and where they must be at certain times of the year to find that and access that. An interesting point there, so in South Africa, because we have so many humans, we have fencing along sometimes a whole reserve or along just a boundary. So for us, there's far to our west, there's a boundary, and then everything to our east is open, and it's huge. You can fit, I'm trying to think, in Kruger National Park, which is right next door to us, you can fit the whole state of Israel in there. And then where we are, just on the western side of Kruger National Park, if you add in all those other parks that are sort of all connected to each other, we're sitting somewhere around 7 million hectares. 7 million acres, excuse me, 7 million acres. I mean, it's huge. It's really big. So they tried to move elephants from one part of this area into another part of the area, and the elephants weren't happy with that, and a few weeks later they just ended up back where they like to be. So the elephants really need to be comfortable where they are, and then they know exactly where they want to move. So I guess you could call them mini migrations. It's not technically a migration, just a movement within their home range, but yeah, I mean, a tiny little mini one, maybe, before we get too pedantic. All right, Steph is out on his bushwalk, and he would like to show you something along the way there. And we're going to move around and see if we can get another visual of our elephants.
Just have a look at what we've managed to find over here. And hello to the bushwalk, part of the whole safari, to all of you out there. My name is Steph. And this is obviously a dead buffalo that we found here. This buffalo died about a year and a half ago now. And you can see how over the course of the last year and a half, the sun has bleached the bones nice and white, and the rain has washed all the leftover bits and pieces of meat off of this buffalo skull. Isn't this just amazing? Let me show you how big a buffalo actually is. Let me see if I can pick up these horns. Just have a look at that. Isn't that incredible? That's a buffalo's head, and it was too heavy for me to pick up. It's massive, eh? You can see how wide my hands are apart. And a buffalo will use his horns to hook at lions, hook up the lion, and toss it with a massive head and fling it around. Isn't that just the most beautiful buffalo? He must have been a very impressive character when he was a little bit older. Here we go. Here's his bottom jaw. With this, he would have eaten all the grass that he wanted to eat, or could eat. This looks like it's one of the jaws here. Let's see if we can get this back onto him and restore him to some of his former glory. There's the one. It's like building a puzzle. There's the other one. And it would have been joined by some cartilage. Now, Horace, you'd like to know if the buffalo is a male or a female? Most definitely a male, Horace, and I know that because of the presence of this massive horn. Females also have horns, but males are the only ones that have what we call a boss. And this is a boss. You can see how solid this is and how overdeveloped it is. Now males use these bosses to wrestle with one another, and they wrestle each other, and over time this boss will wear nice and smooth and will actually, in really old buffalo, almost be like a helmet rather than like this one. This guy probably died in his prime. He looks like he's got very little damage to him. The only thing that did get to him, obviously, was the drought at that particular time of year, and that's what killed him. And then the weakened state. The lions must have killed him. Now, Gabriel, you like to know, how did the buffalo lose its skin? It was probably eaten by a variety of different animals. Firstly, it would have been eaten by the lions that killed him. Now, I'm assuming that it was lions that killed him because at the time there was a pride of lion living in this area, and they were picking off these buffalo, these very hungry, skinny buffalo, as they were coming to a nearby pan to get some water. And firstly, the lions would have eaten the skin. What they left behind, the hyenas would have gotten. Then jackal, and then a whole bunch of insects would have had their turn to eat the leftover buffalo, starting with flies and all their maggots, and that wasn't very nice because you can imagine what that must have smelt like at that time. And lastly, but not leastly, would have been a bunch of beetles we call carrion beetles, which eat the fur and the skin left over. Well, they would have been left over after all those other animals had finished. Isn't it nice? Now, these buffalo, I figured out the trick with these buffalo the other day. You know, sometimes you get caught in the bush and you need to have a toilet seat. And I figured out that you can use the pelvic bone of a buffalo. This is the pelvis, which sits in the hip area. It's where the legs are attached to, the back legs, and would have looked something like that at the time. You can use this as a very handy toilet seat if you get stuck. Now I'm just going to loan some more of this buffalo and see if that'll work. This is a part of its spine, and we can use that as the front part of the seat. You're just going to get the base nice, and there you go. You got yourself a nice toilet seat that you can use. So this old buffalo is still proving useful, even though he's lying over here enjoying more sun and more rain than grass at the moment. And isn't that just the coolest thing? You could pretty much put this whole buffalo back together again if you wanted to. But we're not going to do that. That's a puzzle for another day. In the meantime, what we thought we'd do to you, for you at least anyway, is show you something that is living and with Noel right now.
Look how amazing she is with her trunk and utilizing that trunk to get at what's looking like, what do you think, VM? Bits of that plant, or you think it's bits of grass?
Something from the roots.
Yeah, possibly roots. She's definitely picking her way. Oh, it is that plant there. She's very precisely picking up. At the end of her trunk, she's got two little lips that work like little fingers, which she grabs, and then she winds her trunk around and then pulls it up. Now, we talked about the tush earlier. They're either left tushed or right tushed, very similar to us. We're either left-handed or right-handed, but also the way that they curl their trunk to pick up something off the ground is either focused more on the left or the right. And it's a very, very interesting one. This female, her left tusk looks a little bit more used than her right, so she's probably left tusked. Matthew, you're wondering how elephants will get away from predators. Matthew, it's a really interesting question, that. Elephants are very good at smelling out predators when the wind direction is right, and they also have eyesight that's very similar to us, so they can see, and then they hear amazingly well. If this herd of elephants were to come across lions, they would chase those lions away. They would trumpet, and they would stick out their ears, and they would kick up dust, and they would go, roar, and they would come, and they would keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing as a group. They'd put all the little ones in the middle, and all the larger ones would come and push them off. So that's one thing that they can do. Another thing that they can do is they can just be more quick than the predators. Now, over a short distance, something like a lion is going to be much quicker than an elephant, but an elephant has a lot of body weight. I mean, this female that we're watching here, she's going to weigh about 3.5 tons. So she is able to maneuver that heavy body and use her trunk and use her whole body in a way that allows her to be not speedier but more adept at getting away from those predators. Also, because her senses are very good, when everything's working in conjunction, she's probably going to know that the predators are there ahead of time. It's not always the case. That being said, predators have an adaptation. They have basically what predators do is they have certain prey species that they like to eat, and there are lions in particular who know how to take down full-grown elephants and hunt them properly, and they choose them in a very specific manner. So the elephants don't always win, but that's very briefly kind of how they would do that. Annalise and Diana, you're wondering if when baby elephants are born, if they can walk fast as well. Interesting question. So when they're born, they're wobbly and they stick very close to the mum, but the breeding herd does not want to leave anyone behind, so the herd will work within the tolerance of that youngster, and the mum and any of the older siblings will help take care of it. There's a really interesting sequence that was filmed a few years ago. Well, I say a few, it could be maybe up to about 8 years ago, where a mother gave birth to a male calf that was so big coming out of the womb that its legs had been stuck up against its body for so long that it couldn't uncurl them. So the mum had to stay with this little one and kept trying to help it up and help it up and help it up, and the herd had to move on. There was no food or water there, and eventually the mum helped get this baby stable on its feet. It took a couple of days, and then managed to later on meet up with the herd. So there is that chance that things like that will happen, but in general the little elephants stick with the herd, and the herd makes sure that they move in a way that allows the little ones to stay with them. Vildy, if we go up just a touch, perfect. Do you all see that black bird that's sitting right above that little elephant? All right, that is called a fork-tailed drongo. Fork-tailed because he has a fork tail, and what he's doing is he's following these elephants because every time the elephant moves, it kicks up soil, which kicks up insects, and then it goes down and gets a meal. Oop. There he's flying off. He doesn't want to play that game anymore. Fork-tailed drongo. Oh, it's starting to cool down. There's a beautiful breeze coming through. Lovely. This female here is looking pregnant to me. They're pregnant for about 22 months, and then when the baby's born, they nurse for 24 months, sometimes up to 3 years. And she's looking like she's maybe halfway through her pregnancy. And that's what I would guesstimate from how she's looking. I just want to move the car just a wee bit. Just stick with me. Luke, you're wondering how elephants sleep. Elephants sleep a couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there. They don't sleep long like we do. And they either do it standing up, or when they're younger, they lie down quite a bit. And again, it's just a rest, and it's usually during the heat of the day. Luke, elephants only digest about 25% of what they eat, so they constantly have to be feeding. They've got quite a large body to feed. So part of the reason why they only sleep a little bit here and a little bit there is that throughout the night and through most of the day they need to be feeding, and then when it's really hot like today, they also need to go for water, and they need to make sure that they're not overeating in one area. They need to make sure that they're eating and then moving on, and then eating and then moving on, because they eat so much. If they stay in a smaller area, then what ends up happening is they overeat their food source. You can really see how the trunk's working, how she puts all of the leaves and twigs in her mouth. And then what she's doing there is she has molars in her mouth, really big molars. She's got one on top, one on the bottom, either side. And they don't pop up from bottom to top when you get new ones. They rotate in like a conveyor belt from behind. So every now and then she might have 1.5 molars in there. And so she's taking those branches and she's putting them between her teeth, and then she's rubbing them. There's a ridge, and she's rubbing them and then breaking down that food and then swallowing it. Judy, Violet, and Brooke, you all want to know what they use their tails for. They use their tails for swatting flies, pretty much. And then what you'll also notice is the tail will show you whether it's a relaxed elephant or not. So with these elephants that we're watching here, the tail is just swinging like this. That means a very relaxed elephant. If the elephant is not relaxed, the tail will go rigid and stick out. Hello, young boy. Are you going to come say hello? Oh, I hope everyone heard that one. Because elephants, the way that their digestion works, they fart a lot. Elephants and zebra, rhino, warthogs, there's a lot of gas in those bodies, I should say. That was a young male that came past. This is another young male here. He might get curious about us. He's watching us now as he's moving. Micah would like to know, how do elephants communicate with each other? Micah, that's super interesting to think about. Elephants communicate using what we call a tummy rumble. I'm not good at mimicking that one. Hopefully they'll do one for us. They also communicate by trumpeting, but most of their communication is done through their feet into the ground using infrasound or subsonic vibrations, and that communication can travel up to 60 kilometers, 60. And that basically, the research that's being done on that is these elephants can talk to other elephants up to about 60 kilometers and so on and so on. So like a game of telephone, elephants can talk to each other across not just South Africa, but Southern Africa and up into East Africa and other parts like that. It's very, very, very interesting. So a lot of their communication is done where we can't hear it. There's some really interesting research being done on it. I want to say it's out of North Carolina University, if I'm remembering correctly. I'll have to triple check for you on that one. And it's done with the same process that they photographed where they tested whale song under the water. Similar idea. So we've had part of the herd move off just behind us, but the bulk of the herd is still coming. They're slowly meandering. I'm just going to move a little bit forward so you can see what I can see. And while we're waiting for the rest of the herd to come out so you can see them much better, we are gonna head on over to Steph, who has a beautiful reptile skin to show you. Oh, Komodo, tiny little babies. And there's a tiny baby that we'll come back to. He'll come out soon.
Now, you are right there in that you are coming to have a look at a reptile skin, and it's very difficult to say what exact species this is, but it's unmistakable as to what it is, don't you think? This is a snake skin. And for those of you who don't know, snakes shed their skin. Their skin doesn't grow with them, and as they get bigger, they shed their old skin, and their new skin grows underneath and gets hard, and then they grow into their new skin, and when they're finished with that one, they shed that one off and they grow a new one again. And they do it by producing a milky substance which pushes the old skin off their body a little bit, and then they hook their old skin onto a thorn or onto a branch, and they turn it inside out like a sock. And that is exactly what this snake did. Oh no, I broke it. But there you can see how long it was. Let me show you there. This is how long this particular snake was. There's the tip of its tail. In my hand, hold on. There's the tip of its tail. And its head, you can see. As long as my arm. That's super cool, eh? And here's its head, and you can even see that it had a scale over its eye. So that's how snakes shed their skin. Now Drake, you want to know how many different types of snakes live here? There's a few different types. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you exactly how many species of snakes. I want to say it's probably around about 100 or so, maybe a little bit less than 100 different species of snakes, most of which are completely harmless to people. This particular snake, I think, is an eastern tiger snake, just based on the fact that there's these dark chevrons on its skin. You can see there and there and there. And therefore not a very poisonous snake whatsoever. But before this bird flies away, quickly off to Tristan.
Well, our bird is still sitting very happily for us, and it is one of my favorite birds that we get out here. This bird is called a woodland kingfisher and is a migratory bird. Now, what migratory means is that basically this bird flies from one area in the winter and then travels to our area for summer and then back to wherever it goes in the winter. Now, this particular bird itself will migrate into Central and North Africa, where it gets warmer in the winter month, well, in our winter months, and it can follow insects as it goes, because even though it's called a kingfisher, this bird feeds off mostly insects and small mice and lizards and those kind of things. And so it follows the rains basically back north, and because this area is very dry in our winter months. Now, the reason why it's exciting to see this bird is because this bird has only really arrived back this week, and so it brings a lot of color to this area, and it also has a beautiful call that gets everybody always very excited, because it means it's the end of the winter and the start of the summer for us here in South Africa. So a very, very, very pretty bird to see, and I always love spending time with them. That particular one wasn't going to hang around for very long. It was right above our heads, and so I didn't think it would be here for long. So, Connor, you say, do I enjoy going on these safaris? It looks so cool. Connor, it is undoubtedly the best thing in the world. It is. I love every minute of being out here. I have always loved being out here, and I think I always will. We have a situation where we get to see animals every day. We're out in the sunshine and in nature. So Connor, I absolutely love doing these safaris, and I love the fact that you guys all the way on the other side of the world are able to join us for them, and I'm glad that you're saying that it looks very, very cool. And I hope that one day, Connor, that you'll come out into Africa and come and see all of these animals for yourself at some point. So I hope that you do get to do that, because it is as cool as it looks. Now, while I kind of go through the riverbed and try and not get stuck in all the sand that is here, let's go back to Noel and those beautiful big elephants.
They are beautiful big Ellies indeed, Tristan. We have two youngsters that are busy hanging around mum/auntie just at the backside. So our visual at the moment is not 150%, but what we're doing is we're just waiting to see which direction they move so that we can see where we need to move. So you can see on the left-hand side of the screen there's a little one flapping his ears, and then the other little one is underneath the big one on the right-hand side, flapping the ears there. So they were tussling earlier. Elephants love to play, and they love to play when they're little, and they love to play when they're teenagers. They enjoy it. It helps build their muscles. And it also is a way for them to connect with each other within the breeding herds. Breeding herds are like having a big family. So it's not just your mom and your sisters and your brothers. It's also your aunties and your cousins. So Dad won't be around. The male elephants, when they're about 15 to 18, get moved away and then go off sort of on their own, just to leave the breeding herds with the mums and the aunties and everybody together and in a very calm scenario. And what you'll see with all of these elephants that we're watching, like we talked about before, super, super calm and very relaxed, just feeding away. Evelyn, you would like to know how big are elephants' feet. So everything comes in small, medium, and large. This Ellie that we're looking at the moment's feet are probably the size of a soccer ball and a half. That's what I would say. So you have to flatten your soccer ball. Maybe it's better to do it in pancake size. So we call pancakes flapjacks here. So flapjacks such pancakes. If your mom or dad has a really big pan at home that makes you pancakes, flapjacks, it would be like the size of the biggest pan you could find and then some. That's the best way I know how to put it. I hope that helps, Evelyn. Can everybody hear them eating? So sometimes when we're looking for elephants, like Steph on his own 2 feet, that's what you're listening for. Ryan, you're wondering if elephants and rhinos interact. Is that correct, Kirst? So Maya, you're wondering if elephants and rhino interact. They do. And sometimes it's just ignoring each other, and sometimes it's pretty difficult, and rhino or elephant might try and kill each other. It all depends on what the resources are like. So if it's the middle of summer and we've had very good rain and the resources are good, then there won't be too much interaction that results in anything negative. But if it's very low resources and it's winter time and they really haven't had a chance to get enough nutrients in, then sometimes the interactions are quite rough. I've watched a female white rhino with a tiny calf chase away a herd of elephants, and I've watched a female elephant similar to this one that we're looking at now kill a white rhino, a big I believe it was a female white rhino, sort of tussed it in the side. So they do interact, and it just depends. Every scenario is different, so it depends on what's happening around as to how that interaction functions. All right, everybody, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Your questions have been amazing. We hope that you enjoyed. We have to say goodbye now, unfortunately, but have fun for the rest of your school day. And then we're going to head back over to Tristan and see what's happening that side.
Well, we've managed to bump into the Styx Pride. They are south of us, quite a long way south. It's not a great visual, as you can see. There's an itching Styx cub because of that mange that they've got, but they are not far from our boundary at all. Now, whether or not we're going to see them for much longer, I'm not quite sure. If they just move slightly to the right, we're not going to have any view, or in fact, left or right. They go behind quite a few thickets, and it was just out of nowhere that we were driving past and I saw a car and then a lion standing up, and so that's how we managed to spot them. But the whole Styx Pride, I believe, is there, and Tinyo is also still there at the moment. So I'm hoping that this afternoon they are going to come north towards Gowrie Main and maybe even towards Twin Dams. They are lying not that far from the boundary, and now that we got a bit of overcast conditions, I wonder if that maybe is going to get them going a little earlier, and maybe they'll head towards Twin Dams for a late afternoon drink. I'm hoping that's the case, but nice to see it regardless. I didn't think we would see these guys. I heard that they were south in Little Gowrie and that they were, well, it looks like they're going deeper in. Unfortunately, they're going the wrong way at this stage, so maybe they're going to plonk down. I still see one or two of them lying down there. It's not a great view at all. As you can see, there's a tummy that's moving and stretching, but they look like they're heading the wrong way for us, unfortunately. Like I say, I was hoping they were going to cross this little drainage and come up and towards us and towards this area, but they might be heading a little further south from here because there might be some water in that section. So I'm going to try and see if I can just get a better view somehow here. I don't know if that's going to be possible, and I'm going to check if there's any way that we can see anything different. But while I do that, let's go back across to the bush whisperer himself, Stefan Winterberg, who's 2 miles north of me and is showing you the smaller things.
Seeing lions is always special, hey? But so is seeing something amazing. And have a look at this. This is the nest of a delta wasp. Now, delta wasps are some of the oldest types of wasps, which are some of the most advanced insects on the face of the planet. And this would have been made at the end of last year or the year before. She, the female wasp, would have brought a piece of a mud at a time, a ball of mud at a time, and then using vibrations that she makes with her body, would have welded one piece of mud to another. She would have created a couple of compartments inside this mud, and in there she would have laid an egg per compartment and stuffed the compartment with paralyzed worms and larvae. Now, I know that I can probably open this without too much of a worry because it is from last year, and show you inside. Now, you can see that that's where the larvae dug out, and that's why I know that I'm not doing any damage to any young larvae or young wasps inside there. And it's now become the home of a bunch of different things, spiders, and it's just going to be interesting to see what's actually inside here. So these are all egg casings of spiders. You can see there's some old eggs. That's the old wasp egg. This is just so interesting, man, to see what goes in here. And they prey on almost everything. Let's see what was inside here now. There's just some fungus left over, spider web of some sort. That's the leftover of the caterpillar that the wasp larvae would have fed on. Now, it's not uncommon for these wasps, the larvae themselves, to be parasitized by other insects. Let's open up another cavity and see what other surprises are in here for us. These are all just from last year. There's a bunch of eggs you can see that have been opened, and then the youngster has come out, and a bunch of them. Look there and there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 eggs in that one. Oh, there we've even got a spider, look. Hiding out inside there. So using the discarded remnants as a refuge. That's super cool. I wonder what spider that is. Hello there. And if you're even still alive. It's not uncommon for wasps to put spiders inside these breeding balls. What they do is they sting the spider in a very specific place in its body, and it paralyzes it. And then the living spider is then stuffed into one of these holes, and an egg is laid on it. And the wasp larvae then hatches, and wasp larvae are carnivorous and will start to eat the spider, but all the non-essential organs first, so legs and then the abdomen and bits and pieces of the digestive tract. And as it gets bigger, so the spider gets smaller, until eventually the wasp larvae then consumes the spider, and at that stage it's developed enough energy to metamorphosize from larvae to wasp, and then digs its way out of these shelters and flies away as a fully grown wasp. It's difficult to say what has now happened inside there. The only way I can really do it is by blowing on it. I don't think that spider's alive at all. Let's test it with a piece of grass. I don't want to stick my knife in there because it'll hurt it. And also don't want to just stick a grass in there, because if it is alive, spiders' bodies are soft. So I like to chew the piece of grass first, and then let's see. Oh, it is alive. Oh, look at that. You can see it inside there. Quite special.
Yeah, it's so dark.
Well, it's a bit dark. So let's turn around a little bit and give you a bit more light inside there. And see if we can, with some light, get inside there. A bit better?
Yeah.
Alright, now what to do? Because obviously I've now broken the spider's home, and this is where it lives and is breeding, so let's make a plan. So let's put this into a bush. Leave it there. Should be okay. This bush doesn't get fed on by elephants, and it should be okay for the rest of the season. And hopefully that spider's not too hard done by. Alright, and we're off to go and see those elephants that Tristan is with.
Well, indeed, we've got a beautiful herd of ellies that have just finished drinking at Chitra. Unfortunately, they are highly mobile now, moving away from the dam, and so our time with them is going to be all of about 2 minutes before they cross the cut line, unfortunately. But still beautiful to see. The whole lot of them are just coming across the open area. They've now gone into this thicker, denser bush that we have here, and are slowly going to probably start feeding for the afternoon. What I'm going to try and do is just try and get around them and try and head to the other side where we can just catch them before they cross the cut line, because they are heading in that direction, and it looks like they are going to cross into Little Gowrie, and so I just want to quickly get into that direction and just hopefully spend a little bit longer with them, and hopefully we'll be able to get a really nice view of all of them. Now there is one female that's a little bit grumpy and a little bit on her sort of not her best behavior this afternoon, and she's just shook her head at me. So I'm going to try not go too close to her. I want to try and give her as wide a berth as is possible and try and leave her as much space as possible. But I always love coming to Chitra Dam, and this is the reason why, is because there is always something going on at this dam. It's never a quiet sort of moment here. There's always something happening, and the Ellies absolutely love it. And on a hot day like we've had today, the cold water of Chitra Dam is the perfect place for an Ellie just to go and cool off. So let's just try and get a little further. We're not far from where we need to be because they are slowly meandering, but if I just get in front of them, hopefully we can watch them kind of moving towards us ever so gently, and we'll get a really good view of all of them coming out. Now, the cut line is not far. There it is. There it is. Just trying to find the road quickly. Got to negotiate this area a little bit. There's a few trees we don't want to drive over because they are not great for my tires. There we go. So this was the very, very quick shortcut that we just took to get round to the other side. So here we go. Stevie, you're wondering if an elephant had an injured ear, would it overheat? Now, Stevie, it depends on how severe the injuries are, and it would have to be both ears in order to give it a problem. But then what you would find is elephants, being as intelligent as they are, would probably then go and find more water sources to go and just cool down in water. You can see they're moving very quickly. They're not really going very slowly, except that they rub up on every tree they can. How cool is that? What are you doing, girl? She's having a really good rub on that marula tree, and so after a bit of sort of washing and spraying of water and mud, it's always good to go and rub up on a tree. It just helps to exfoliate and get rid of all of those parasites and various other things. But sorry, Stevie, I got sidetracked a bit there. I always love watching. Oh yes, hello. Now, in terms of their ears, they would go and find water, they would go and find some way of cooling down, spend more time in the shade, less time in the sun, and that would really help them. But for the most part, even if they've got some sort of damage to the ear, they're actually okay, because I've seen elephants that have half an ear that are still able to cope with this heat and survive just fine. So it's not something that is completely required that both ears have to be fully functional. Even if one is slightly kind of broken and skewed off a little bit, it doesn't really matter too much. It's still okay, and the Ellies will survive under these extreme conditions even with that. So like I said, I'll just go and find water or something to that degree. This poor marula has been rubbed on by everybody. Everybody's decided to have a little kind of rub as they've gone along. But what a beautiful herd. It's a nice big herd, lots of little babies in it, a few big cows as well, and you can see they're just busy crossing the road at the moment, so slowly but surely just kind of ambling along there on all sides of us at the moment. So nice to see. And like I said, it's a pity we didn't get them coming the other way, going towards Chitra Dam. I would have loved to have seen them coming down to the water itself and having a good splash. And there's lots of babies like this. It's always wonderful to see them as they make their way towards water. Philip, so they're not rubbing for the same reason that a cat is rubbing all the time. So cats do rub because of glands on underneath their eyes. Their preorbital glands just help with scent marking and allowing them to kind of leave their scent behind. That one's covered in dirt by the looks of things. And so whereas elephants is a little bit different. Is that dirt, or is it the skin of this elephant itself? It looks like the skin. I wonder if that elephant... Hang on a second. That's really interesting. I wonder if this elephant doesn't have a little bit of leucism in it. So I have seen pink elephants before. It's not an uncommon thing. Generally, if you look at their eyes, I don't know if Sense, if you can maybe try and get in on the eye there, maybe it's got a different color eye to it. Sometimes you'll find elephants with that coloration will have bright blue eyes. No, don't turn your head this way. No, don't go that way. Let's just keep on that elephant quickly. But it looks like a form of leucism. So like I say, when they're leucistic, they will get a little bit of pink skin like that, and they will get a blue colored eye, which is pretty incredible. So let's see, maybe Sense, if you can try and go back to it, and hopefully it will turn at some point and we'll be able to see exactly what it is. It would be amazing if it does have a bluish tinge to the eye. It's that elephant right there. Come on, just turn your head for me. And there's those pink legs that we're talking about, but that's definite pinkness that's coming through. The thing about it though is it's not all over the body. That's what makes me think that it could be something else, although I see it goes up towards the tummy, and it's far too kind of spread to be fire damage, and there's no scarring in that area, so it's not from a fire that's hurt that elephant in any way. That's more looks like a leucistic individual, which is really very, very cool. It's not something you see every day at all. And there used to be an elephant here in the Sabi Sands that had a slight pinkish tone like that and had the most incredible sapphire blue eyes. I have a photo of it somewhere, and I'll try and find it for you so I can show you guys, but it was the most incredible elephant, and it was one of those that I hoped that I would see more of, because the times that I did get photos of it they weren't very good, and I really wanted to get an incredible photo of that bright icy blue eye in relation to the elephants. But how cool was that? That was very, very cool. But back to the sort of question about whether or not they rub on things in the same way that cats do. Elephants are doing it more just to look after their skin and to create a situation where they get rid of any dead skin cells, parasites, those kind of things, and make sure that they're in great condition. So that's why they do it, as opposed to the cats that are more just trying to mark their scent on specific trees and various other things. Well, that was the most incredible way to spend an afternoon. I love spending time with Ellies, and we've been so fortunate and spoiled to have such a big herd like that move around us, including what looks like a leucistic elephant. It really doesn't get too much better than that, and so hopefully, we'll kind of end on that real note, and then hopefully we'll have a situation where we'll find not much, well, even if we don't find anything else, it's been absolutely wonderful just to spend time with the Ellies themselves.
Hello everyone, welcome to our interactive safari at Biffleshoek Dam, where we just had an elephant and a hippo who both wanted to go away. So if you're just joining us now, I am Noelle and I have Vildy on camera, and we are, as I said before, interactive, so hashtag Safari Live on the Twitter or on the YouTube chat. So because our hippo has disappeared and our elephant's walking up the road, let's go find that elephant. Oh, really? I start the car and you want to show yourself. There he is. So shame. There's been so much elephant activity around him. He just keeps hiding away. And then it's starting to, well, it's been windy, but it's starting to get cooler. So he's a grumpy hippo. He's really not happy for life at the moment. He's giving us the hairy eyeball. Shame. Poor hippo. All right, buddy, we won't torture you too much longer. Okay, our Ellie moved off just on the other side. Nice big male elephant. So we will head over there. And see what's happening. There's his big bum. Down the way. He's been following some females. Lots of breeding herds in this area today. I know we just had some great sightings with Tristan down at Chitwa Dam with some breeding herds of elephants, I believe. Steph has something he really wants to show you, so let's go over and see what he has.
I'm looking at a bit of vomit. I don't quite know what those two girls said to one another to get you that, but definitely old giggly Noelle over there found something funny in it. Anyway, it is a bit of regurgitation. Now, when you find a bunch of hair lying around the bush and sharp-edged bones like that, see those sharp edges on that bone there? And this one, splinters of bone there. That is 9 times out of 10 a bit of regurgitation and not dung. Dung that comes out of a cat, one of the great cats, lion or leopard, has softened the edges. The gastric juices soften the edges of these sharp bones. But what they don't do is digest hair very well. And that's actually what this is all about. So the lion has wolfed down a bunch of food. This looks like an Impala or something. Wolfed down a bunch of food, including the fur, in an effort to get as much food into its belly as possible. There, this turned around and was milled around by the tummy, and then the lion's body said, no, I can't digest this fur, and you must get rid of it. And so the lion regurgitated a hairball, and in it was all these bones. So although they can get a little bit of nutrients from the bones, they don't get a lot of nutrients from the hair. And so when they vomit up or regurgitate up the hair, some bones that were in the mix come out as well. And here you can actually see a hoof of this hapless impala. You can see it there. Looks like a young impala of some sorts. And that is what caused all this hair. Lions will almost inhale an impala, and in so doing, obviously inhale a lot of fur as well. There's a hip joint. Shame. Yeah, they didn't even have enough decency to chew the whole hip joint. They just crunched it down and swallowed it just like that. What else is over here? Now, it's always a good idea not to touch regurgitation and anything to do with lion feces or anything like that. They carry around the most unbelievable bacteria loads. So you don't want to get that into a cut on your hand or anything like that. So just be careful around things like that. But this definitely is. Sometimes you can find teeth in here as well if you dig around a little bit. Definitely the regurgitation of some impala, it looks like. Now, there are, there's a lot of, you never see lions eating impala, and yet they do feed on a lot of impala. Now, some of you are wondering if it smells. No, not at this particular point. It doesn't smell. And also, when it was regurgitated out, it has this like weird wet fur smell, but not too bad. Definitely lion regurgitation doesn't smell nearly as bad as what lion dung smells like. And so I'm quite happy to do this and scratch around in it and see what else we can find. Now, this is mainly just from a single food source or a single prey item. In very rare cases, what will happen is the lion will develop a massive hairball and then hack that out. But usually it's done pretty soon after the meal is had. Once the lion has calmed down a little bit and its stomach has had some time to collect all this fur and to strip the meat from it, basically. So it happens a couple of hours after the lion has eaten the impala, and it'll come out in this big mass. And why it's lying like this, spread out all over the place, is because it's been rained on. So there's nothing really holding it together except this fur, and the rain will rain on it and then disperse it a little bit, and then animals will come and chew on it and disperse it even more. But that's it. Some signs of the passage of lions. It swallowed some impala here. It's been a lovely walk today. And it's been nice that it's been sort of, there's been a couple of things going on, from lion to some ellies and all these little things we'll be seeing. Anyway, we're going to carry on through this thick bush, keep our eyes and ears open. You're off to Tristan.
Well, I agree, Steph. There's been lots happening this afternoon, and it's been quite wonderful actually to be out. Lots of ellies around, various other things. So Chitra Dam now is where we're going to probably spend most of our afternoon. Now, I apologize for the radio being so loud. It's just that, unfortunately, it doesn't want to work unless it's on loud like that. It doesn't want to come through my earpiece. But we'll spend the rest of the day around Chitra. There were monkeys alarm calling, like I say, when I had my puncture this morning. And so I know that there's a leopard here somewhere. It's just now a matter of finding it. But while we're kind of thinking about our next plan and listening out for any alarm calls, might as well have a look at the resident crocodiles and hippos that we have in this area. There's one croc that is out on the bank. It looks like Boris that is out on this side. I don't know if the tail is short, but it looks like Boris just from the general size of this individual. It's not the biggest one here. I think Vlad is slightly bigger. And I'm just trying to see if I can see Vlad anywhere around. Maybe Vlad's with the little ones somewhere. But I can hear birds calling, and then there's a grey go-away bird calling as well, and I'm wondering if maybe there's not a snake or a monitor lizard or something around here that's causing a few of these birds to get a little bit on the upset side. It's interesting. Anyway, we'll keep an eye out for them while we kind of look at our croc. And our croc is obviously out getting a suntan. This is what they do, is they come out and just absorb a bit of heat in order to get that body moving and get that body going. And so very common to see them out like this. And now that the clouds are coming back over again and it's just a little cooler, it's not cold by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not as hot with that baking sun. It can afford to close its mouth. So you see it's not practicing gular flutter where its mouth is open and it's breathing very rapidly to try and get rid of excess heat and cause evaporation over that mouth surface area. It's able to close that, and its temperature is probably very, very good at this stage. You'll find that this crocodile will come out, will go from there and into the water later, and from there it will start to probably hunt quite effectively in the sort of late afternoon. You find that they often do hunt just around sunset. They'll go right up into the corners of the dam and hunt various fish species, and if something is unsuspecting and walks down towards the water too quickly, well, then you get a situation. Oh, hello guys, where did you come from? Oh, just goes to show you, this is why Chitra Dam is just the most special place, is because things just arrive out of nowhere. So one herd of elephants has just left and another herd has just arrived. How wonderful is that? Hey guys, so cool. I love the Ellies. They really are fantastic, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see what we normally see from the Ellies here, is that they just start drinking there, and slowly but surely they meander their way around, and then they go back again and back into the thicket the same way they came. So that's super cool to see that there's another herd that's just arrived, and it'll mean that I'll be able to show you what I was talking about just now with the blue eyes of that leucistic elephant. It's not obviously this herd, and there's no blue-eyed elephant in this, but we can just carry on our conversation about that. But a nice small-sized herd. I wonder if they are not in some way related to the herd that just left, or maybe they kind of saw the herd earlier and there was a bit of sort of wariness at the size of the other herd, and that's why they waited for them to finish before moving into this area. Those elephants most certainly would have been communicating with one another. Could also be why the other herd moved as fast as they did out of this section. Maybe they heard another herd on its way and they then decided it's time to vacate this area and leave them to drink. So interesting behavior though, because they moved a lot quicker than I thought they would, and now another herd arriving would make sense that they kind of gave way and moved out of the area for this particular unit and grouping. But you see, they generally do this, is they start to drink there and then slowly but surely worm their way around to our side, which is very, very cool. And I love watching them drink at these dams, because you see how they kind of edge their toes in a little bit, then they use their trunk just to break the surface tension, get rid of any of that horrible stuff, and then they'll start drinking the clean water that's underneath that. And Chitra Dam must be one of the best places for water in the whole area at the moment. In fact, out of all of the dams in the Sabi Sands, I'd imagine that this is probably one of the best places for Ellies to be. At the end of the day, I know it's not pumped water, but the size of this area and the size of the dam itself would probably indicate that most of this water is actually fairly fresh, and there'll be a lot of filtration that goes on through the sand as it flows in from the Mulawati, and so the water itself is probably in better condition than a number of the smaller pans like Twin Dams, Treehouse Dam, and those areas. And that's why we're probably seeing that the Ellies are not sticking around on Vuyatela or Djuma very long. They go to Gowrie Dam, for example, and I think it was Morning Glory, you tagged me in a post this morning about how the Ellies keep coming to the dam but just turning away and walking off as if to say the water's just not good enough. And so it seems as though they know that the water on Djuma at the moment is kind of been wallowed in, it's been lay in, it's been urinated in, and it's not really great quality water, and therefore they're not drinking it. And so what we need is those ominous clouds that are starting to come over to deposit some rain, and so that Gowrie Dam can fill up, and so can Treehouse and Twin Dams. It'll obviously make game viewing a lot harder, but the flip side of that is that we will see a lot more of the Ellies drinking around Djuma and spending a lot more time in that particular area. Now what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm just going to change positions just slightly, just to give Senzo a little bit more to work with and not to shoot so much into the light. So I'm just going to move around for him a little bit. I was parking for the crocodile, and that's why I was here, and I'm going to just make sure I don't end up putting us into a ditch or over a stump or something, because I've already driven over a massive rock this afternoon and almost sent Senzo flying off and into the abyss, which we don't really want to do, particularly with crocodiles and hippos and elephants and all the other things that are around. Joy, you're wondering why this dam has so much water compared to the others. Well, Joy, the reason why is because this dam is on a major waterway. So if you have a look at the drainage lines that feed these dams, this is on the Mulawanini. There's no dam that's been built on the Mulawati. Now, if you imagine, other than obviously Gari Dam that's built right in the northern parts of that, but if you have a look at anywhere sort of south of Gari Dam, if you had to put a dam there and then have the rains, you'd find that that dam would be big like this. The other thing about it is that this dam has a massive dam wall. And if you look at this length of that dam wall that Senzo is showing you now, it is huge and it is deep. This has been excavated to bedrock. In places this dam is close to 15 meters deep, so it is very, very deep in here, and that means it holds water. And every year, even though it's losing a bit, there's a bit of a gain in the good wet years. And I can tell you where we are right now is in no way that we would have been able to be here in 2012. So the dam has lost a lot of water. Unfortunately, there was a crack in the dam wall that seeped a lot of water out, but I remember in the 2012 floods standing on top of that dam wall, so you can see the height of an elephant, and the dam wall is still higher than that elephant, standing on top there, and the water was about knee high going over the dam wall. So that gives you an idea of how much more water there was in this particular section. So it still suffered in this drought condition. It's just that this dam is just so large that it's been able to hold water that much better, and because its feeder system is a much bigger drainage system than Twin Dams or Treehouse or Gari Dam, it means that it fills up a lot quicker and it holds water for longer because of that. So that's the basic reason for it. But these ellies look like they're having a wonderful time. You see how they've sprayed water over their head and over their ears mostly. There's very little water that's gone on the rest of the body, but what they try and do is just down the face and around the ear areas. That's always a good place. What are you doing, little one? What is going on? Typical young elephant. Don't you love when they do this? I love when they kind of just plonk their faces head first into the mud and then kind of use their tusks to pull the mud up and kind of break it. Also, the nice thing about ellies once they've drank is, look, it looks like they're wearing socks. So all of them are walking along with these feet that have got these little black markings on them. So there we go. It almost looks as though they've got their little pairs of socks on as they go along. It's actually quite cool to see. So just as quickly as they came, they are now departing the scene, and they are moving in a very similar direction as what the other herd moved. And it's amazing how fast they do move away from water. You would think that they would amble around and kind of mess around for a bit, but no, these guys are on a serious mission. They've got places to be, people to see, elephants to go and visit, and vegetation to go and eat, and so that's why they're probably moving off fairly quickly. But the sky above them is absolutely beautiful. It is kind of that deep stormy kind of cloud. You can see a bit of sun coming up there, a few dead leadwoods with them as well. It's just the most magical scene when you have these ellies just crossing this open area with that dead leadwood and these big storm clouds in the background. It's wonderful to see. Very, very cool. That was a nice surprise. Now, sorry, Senzo, before you do anything more, can you see this bird that has just landed here for me? Now, Kirst, if you can just repeat the question, I will get to it now. Now, there's a bird that's just landed here, Senzo, straight in front of me. Straight. Patty, you're asking if the croc would go after the elephants? Yes, it would. So, Senzo, just go straight in for me, right there, where my finger is. There, a little bit to your left, sorry. There it is. So, yes, you would have a situation where crocs would go after elephants. They grab them by the trunk from time to time. Now, what are you? Is this one of our pratincoles? It is one of our pratincoles. I haven't seen one of these guys in a very, very long time. So these guys were here in summer last year, and it's their first one that I've seen back, but it looks like a young one. So I just want to double check that it is a pratincole. It looks like it's most certainly the right shape and sort of beak structure. I just got to find them in my book quickly just to make 100% sure, but it does very much look like a pratincole. That's in my mind anyway, and it would be the first one that's back at Chitra Dam, and it's a young individual, so I've got to just make 100% sure if it is a collared pratincole. It is collared pratincole juvenile. Now, where have you come from that there's no adults with you? That's strange, because normally obviously you'll have a situation where you've got the adults together with a juvenile bird, particularly given that it's the migratory period and these guys come to breed in these areas. So I'm quite surprised to see that. That's very interesting. Their breeding period is now from September, October, November, December. That's when they breed a lot. And so where this one has come from, I'm not quite sure, but very, very cool to see, and not something that we get to see very often. In fact, Chitra Dam is the only place that we get to see them here in the northern Sabi Sands, and so this is a really, really good sight. And for a lot of you, I'm sure this will be a new bird. If you weren't watching in the summer of last year, this will be a completely new species for you and all of. That's very cool. I'm super excited about that. Nice to see them back in this area, that's for sure. Collared pratincoles. Good. Nice. I'm going to go catch up with our Ellies though, now that I've had my collared pratincole fix, and just go and spend a little bit more time with them. And Patty, sorry, I got completely distracted by the bird, but I'll get back to your question now. Yes, crocodiles will go after young elephants if they get too close or too deep in the water, but because of the size of an elephant and the general sort of herd structure, it's very difficult for a crocodile to grab one of those and there to be no reaction from the rest of the herd. And the rest of the herd will go storming in. They'll try and tusk that crocodile. They'll use their trunk and their power to throw it out, and the crocodile inevitably then gives way and lets it go. So very few cases of elephants being killed by crocodiles, but it does happen where crocodiles will attack elephants from time to time. It's just a very, very seldom seen thing to take place. Right, so are you guys going to be far more relaxed and just sit for me? I hope so. Right, now while I try and catch up quickly with these Ellies and go around and do the same trick as what we did with the other herd, let's go back across to Noelle and see what she's been up to and whether she's had any interesting things buzzing around or moving around wherever she is.
Alright, so we were hoping to catch up with that male elephant again for everybody, but he crossed over the Biffles Hook cut line. So we have started to make our way towards the hyena den. It has gotten a little bit cooler, not by much, but it's welcome. And we've got a few clouds coming through. Billy was just saying now we're supposedly in for a huge amount of rain. So that will be interesting to look for over the next couple days. I don't think it's going to rain within the next hour, maybe later tonight. We'll have to wait and see. And we are now at the entrance of the hyena den. So I'm just going to go a little bit quiet as we pull in. One of the reasons why I'm getting a little bit quiet is I tend to have quite a loud voice, and noise really travels here in the bush, so I don't want to potentially scare off anything. I know we've got the sound of the car, but the sound of a car, also with my big booming voice as well, can sometimes be a bit too much for younger creatures like these hyena cubs that we're trying for. There they are. Fantastic. So they're not in the mouth of the den today. They're just to the outside, which means they're feeling super comfortable, having a good nap. You can see those sharp, sharp, sharp teeth as it yawns. There he's having a look at us. Oh, Muder. So I've still only seen these two. I do know that there's an older one somewhere about. I haven't seen that one yet. I also haven't seen any of the adults around the den site when I've been here. And I would say probably 1 out of every 3 times I visit, these two are showing themselves. You can see the pad really nicely. We've been doing a lot of tracking over the past couple of weeks, and you can see those claws really nicely. You can see how smushed the toes are. When a hyena leaves a track, there's not a lot of space, and then you can just barely see the 2 lobes at the back of the bottom of the pad there. These are some sleepy hyena cubs. Francis from Israel, you're commenting that they've grown so much. They're getting bigger by leaps and bounds. The milk that the mothers produce has a lot of protein in it. And then she'll also bring them back bits of carrion for them to eat. And so they're getting twice the amount of protein and nutrients that they need, and so it makes them grow very quickly. Steph is on his way back to camp because it's starting to get a little bit dark for a walk, so he's got one more thing he would like to show you, before he heads home. So let's go on over to him.
We've got a young hornbill, and I'm really battling to figure out if it's a yellow-billed hornbill, a very small one, or a red-billed hornbill, but it is small, and it has caught a meal for itself. And you can see how it's rubbing that meal on the stick to try and kill it, or to try and rub irritating hairs off of the body of that particular caterpillar that it's managed to catch. And you see, as soon as it's managed to rub the hairs off, it'll swallow it. But why I'm saying it's young is that you can have a look at its beak. It just doesn't have that adult form to it just yet. Coupled to the fact that the last couple of weeks I've seen a number of baby hornbills busy leaving their nests. And hornbills, of course, have a phenomenon that the female goes into a hole in a tree and pulls out all her primary feathers and then glues up the entrance of the hole using a variety of different mud that the male brings for her and her own feces, and glues up the hole, leaving a little gap for her feathers, for her beak. She then sticks her beak out, and the male comes and brings her food. She puts her beak back in, and that way she can fend off any predators that want to come into the hole and bother her and her babies. As her babies fledge, and they don't all get, firstly, all the eggs don't get laid together at the same time, and secondly, all the babies don't get ready to leave the nest at the same time. So the older chicks fight to get out, the younger chicks fight to glue up the nest, and it ends up being this tug of war, which of course will eventually be won by the sheer number of adult birds that are in the nest, and eventually they'll break out. But what does happen is that the male will continue to try and feed the female grubs and insects and its youngest brood, and have a look there. And so you get this sort of congregation of different aged hornbills around a nest. Now, let's see if he turns his bill, if we can see whether it is I still can't see. What do you think, Xander? Yellow or red? Kirsty also thinks it's red. Everybody, what do you all think out there? I don't know, those bold white patterns on the wings tell me that it's a yellow-billed, not a red-billed hornbill, but it does look very red, hey? Let's see if I can get into a slightly different angle here. But I'll stick by the fact that it's still a youngster. All right, maybe not. Right, so it flew away, and that was the end of that particular sighting. Myself and Xander are heading back. It is getting a little bit dark for a walk at the moment, so what we're going to do is we're going to be heading back to camp, but we are heading out tomorrow morning, so we'll definitely see you on a walk for tomorrow morning. So from myself and Xander, we're saying good night and goodbye, and you're off to Noel at that hyena den.
We are still with our sleepy, very adorable hyena cubs. Fieldy and I were just saying it would be so nice if they came up and investigated the car, because usually when they're this age and a little bit older, they get super curious about us. They're obviously relaxed with us. They've barely moved since we got here, but then our smells and our sounds, and them being hyenas in general are just very curious. They do like to come up, but they are out. Look at twitching in their sleep with little naps, out for the count. Vildy was also commenting that maybe because it's getting a little bit darker, a little bit cooler, maybe the parent, one of the females will come back and there'll be a bit of interaction. So we're just having a look around and seeing if that's going to happen. Joy, super interesting question. You're asking if these cubs are past the siblicide stage. So Joy, I'm gonna say no, but with a rider on the no. They're still going to want to have some sort of dominance over one another, especially the female. But that being said, it's not something that happens every single time with every single litter. So with these two still remaining and looking very healthy, I'm going to say that any sort of chances of infighting with the siblicide for the two of them for right now is pretty low. But again, that's just a guesstimate. I've seen very small cubs doing siblicide, and I've seen cubs that are close to a year old trying to do it as well. So there's a larger gap. And as far as I know, Joy, these cubs are about 3 months, roughly, maybe a little bit more now. So there's still a chance for it. But I don't know, these two seem quite relaxed with each other from the few times I've seen them. Alana, you're wondering if the hyenas dig out the dens themselves. So the den sites that the mums choose are holes inside of termite mounds that have been dug out by aardvark. And then, thanks Fildy, and then what happens is that the cubs, when they're little, will do a little bit of renovation, a little bit of digging inside of those to make little tunnels that they can get into, not very deep, and harder for the adults to get in. So they do dig a wee bit, but they're not digging the whole den site by any means. Oh my goodness, it twitched its tail. Come, you guys are so cute. Come show everybody how amazing hyenas are, as opposed to the horrible reputation that Disney gave you with the Lion King. You're fabulous, darling. Sorry, I absolutely love hyenas. They're incredible. And I get so sad every time I see little clips from sort of animated movies where they show them as these villainous, horrible creatures. They're really just spectacular. And I mean, look how cute that face is. Don't you just want to snuggle with it? Come on. Albeit they're probably quite smelly. Tristan is on a bumble around after his brilliant elephant sightings, but let's head on over to him and see what he has to say for us. Tristan, say something very interesting, maybe affect an accent of some kind.
Very interesting. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't really have much to say. You know me, I don't have interesting things to discuss a lot of the time. I just mess around and... No, I'm joking. So we've been behind Chitra Dam Mall. We had a little look just to see if maybe there was a lazy leopard lurking in that area. And alas, there was not. There was no leopard, unfortunately. So now I'm back to the dam mall and I'm going to try and check around all the areas where I think these monkeys may have seen a leopard. Of course, a monkey has incredibly good eyesight, and if it's in one of these trees, its field of view is huge. It can see all over this area, and so it's going to be quite tough to find this individual, but you never know. With a bit of perseverance and a bit of luck, maybe, just maybe, we will find them and they will come out for us. And not them, him or it or her, I suppose, unless there's more than one leopard, which would also be absolutely fine with me. I would most certainly not sneeze at more than one. But while we're kind of going in this area, we might as well just check in on our little crocs, see how they're doing, given that the wind is up and it must be quite difficult to bob around in such rough conditions. So Bella, in terms of crocs that are in this dam, 2 big crocs, a male and a female by the looks of things, and 4 young ones apparently. I still only think there are 3. I have yet to see a 4th one, but apparently there are 4, and so that would make 6 crocodiles in total in this particular pan. It could vary and change and be different at times. I'm not 100% sure, but you know, there's crocs that go in and out that are fairly smaller, but definitely 2 crocs that are resident here, and then these 4 little ones that are fairly new and have been born in the last month or 2. But I think it's so choppy that we can't actually see them in the water. Can you see anything inside there, Sens? No little crocs that I can see at the moment. I think they must be in the water itself. Maybe they're sitting in amongst all those tangles and just taking it easy and using the cover of these ripples to maybe do a bit of hunting, but definitely no sign of them sunning themselves at all with the sun going down. They're taking care of dinner.
They take early dinner.
Oh, taking early dinner. So Senzo says yes, they're on early dinner. They're on a go slow this afternoon. Right, so no sign of our crocs, which means we're going to carry on and go and check around Chitra airstrip. We're going to have a little look around in all of these nooks and crannies that a little leopard could hide in, because knowing our leopards, there's probably one sitting under a deck here somewhere or in a thicket in one of these areas, and hopefully it will be available by us. Ilana, I have never seen it myself. It's not to say that it won't happen, but I've never seen a crocodile dig up other crocodiles' nests and eat the eggs. Crocodiles are fairly interesting creatures. They pretty much will eat anything, so there's very little a crocodile will not eat, and so it would surprise me if they don't do that. I don't know if they actively will dig up a nest, but I'm pretty sure if they came across it for some reason and there were eggs available and they could get to those eggs, they most certainly would try their luck and actually go for them. So I think it's a situation where it's more kind of an opportunity. I don't think they actively go seek out eggs like the monitor lizards do, but they will take an opportunity if they can get it and try and feed off those eggs. At the end of the day, it's nutrition and it's for nothing. There's no energy expended in order to get that nutrition. So I think it's a case that you would find that they would go after something if they could, but at the end of the day, it's just a lot of effort to go digging up crocodile eggs. And there's also, you've got to get past mother crocodile, who's generally very close when the eggs are laid. She normally sits either on the bank near them or in the water very close by, and will come rushing out into the aid of those little babies and make sure that she protects them the best that she can. And so it's not really easy for anyone to actually get anywhere near those crocodiles and those eggs and actually go after them. So I don't know. I don't think it would be the case. I mean, obviously I could be wrong, and it probably, like I say, has been recorded and documented somewhere. I just have never seen it myself, nor have I even seen any videos or evidence of it in my time. Like I say, it's not to say that it hasn't happened. Nice to have the little baby crocs though, so I'm glad, whatever the case, that nothing raided the nest to get them. Steph Marie, who is Conrad's sister. So for those of you who don't know who Conrad is one of our newer members of the crew. He has joined our tech department and is doing a wondrous job. Conrad is fitted in like nobody's business, and he really is doing an incredible job so far, and such a lovely person as well. So well, it's great for us that he's joined, because he's a very knowledgeable young man and he's very good at what he does, so I'm hugely grateful that he's here. But you want to know if the scales, hang on a second, sorry, I know I'm getting distracted, but if the scales on a crocodile's back indicate its age and whether or not you can use that as a reliable technique to age them. So I have heard this theory before. Don't think it's proven at all. In terms of aging crocodiles, generally what people will use is more tooth condition and size of the crocodile itself and the size of the head. Scale counts and how many scales they've got, obviously as the body grows, so the scales become more visible and easier to tell, but as far as I know, it's not a reliable situation, and it's not something you should use in order to be able to actively calculate the size of a crocodile. It's better to rather go and, like I say, look at teeth condition, look at overall size, head size. Those are far more reliable ways of aging a crocodile. So it's not like rings of a tree and the scales on the back are the same thing. Now you'll notice that I just quickly changed direction, and the reason why is because I just heard some Franklin's alarm call and kind of scuttle away, and that can sometimes mean that they've bumped into something. So I'm just going slowly along. I know Hosanna and Tumba, both of them have spent time here. Both of them cross through a little drainage, and there's a termite mounds there that they like to go on and be able to kind of look around, and so it's worthwhile just driving in this general vicinity and having a little check and look around. And so while I kind of double check, triple check and quadruple check this area, let's go back across to Noelle and see where she's gone and if she's got anything interesting in any interesting accents.
No interesting accents except my own tryst, But what we're doing at the moment is we heard alarm calling while we were sitting with the hyenas and you all were watching Tristan. And it turned out to be alarm calls from zebra. And we found them and they were running off. But the frequency of the alarm calls to me and the pitch that they were using says that they probably saw a leopard or a hyena, not a lion. So we're just busy backtracking the zebra where they ran from, or the direction they ran from, to see if we can see. It could have even been a cheetah. That would have been another, a single cheetah, another type of alarm call. So with something like zebra, when they see a predator that they know is not necessarily going to be able to eat them, they'll still alarm call so that they can warn everything else, and then they'll remove themselves from the area. Remember, when you run away, you're showing the bum end is where everything catches. So there's definitely something happening. We just have to figure out what, where, when, why. And because our audio for the alarm calls ran off, we are now searching to see if we can find whatever it is. Stopping and listening every now and then. For me, it feels like something maybe from here. They could have maybe even smelled something. So I think we're just going to move around a little bit. Plus, it's Vildy's first day back from leave, so he's really been asking for a leopard. And it would be nice if we can find him one. It would be very nice. Alright, so we got lots of Ellie tracks. We had some zebra tracks back here. If we don't find whatever we think was making those zebra move off, we'll probably head back to the hyena den, see if they wake up a little bit. Oh, Eric, you're saying, oh, how you wish it was a caracal. I've never heard zebra's alarm call for a caracal, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen, and I would love to see a caracal, so it would be nice. Impala, why are you not seeing a predator? What's wrong with you? Okay, so for now, I'm not picking up anything. I should say we're not picking up anything for now. But that doesn't mean that there's not something here. So the loop I'm gonna make is going to be a big one that will eventually get us back towards those hyena cubs, depending on what we find. But it is a good time of the evening, late afternoon, for things like leopard and lion and hyena and caracal and serval to start moving about, even though it was ridiculously hot and humid today. So I'm just checking every now and then for tracks, because as you all know, the tracks let us know. Here's our zebra tracks. They came from this way, heading in and then around. So let's go check this open area up here, because sometimes what happens is maybe they didn't see the predator, maybe they just smelled the predator. Andy, you're wondering if any cheetah have been seen since Tristan last saw them. As far as I know, Andy, on Juma itself, no. Well, at least not by us. I don't know by anybody else. The cheetah population numbers in the whole Lowveld area, the whole greater Kruger area, are low at the moment because the lion and leopard population numbers are high. They work in peaks and valleys. So when we do get a chance to see cheetah, it's very, very, very special. And they move distances, not as much as, say, a wild dog, but they will have larger areas that they're going to cover because there's smaller numbers of them. Their territories will be bigger. Was it yesterday morning? I believe it was yesterday morning. We had young male leopard tracks heading towards Impala. And then we didn't pick them up from there. I feel like we should move in this direction. I don't know why I say that. It's just the feeling that I'm getting. It would be amazing if we do find a cheetah. I haven't seen a cheetah in a while. Scott gets to see cheetah all the time up in the Mara. It makes me super jealous. Sorry guys, give me 1 minute. Did everybody hear that? That was zebra, but they're not alarm call. That's a different alarm call. The alarm call we heard earlier was a snort. That call that those zebra are making there can, at a higher pitch and for longer, it's going to be an alarm call. That one is them calling for, for other zebra. So, and these Impala are way too relaxed. Something's potting and I'm missing pieces to my puzzle, which makes it difficult for me to surmise exactly what's going on. Our zebra have disappeared. Joy, you read my mind. It is time for wild dogs. Yes, I would love to see some wild dogs. Joy, I don't know why these dogs don't want to show themselves. I mean, look, we've got all this food for them. Yummy little Impala snacks. Interesting, interesting. All right, well, without any more pieces to the puzzle, I don't know what those zebra were on about, unfortunately. So I did say we were going to go back to that hyena den, but I feel like carrying on more this way and seeing if we pick up more on that leopard. And Tristan has a surprise for you, so let's head over to him and see what's potting. Sorry, Kirst? Oh, I see what's going on. So Tristan's giving a message through Kirsten FC to me because I'm busy with you guys, so my game drive channel is down. So Kirsten, yes, we can accept that. Shall we go see some lions, everybody? Would we like to do that? Would we like to carry on looking for leopard, go back to the hyena den, or go look at lions? What would we like to do? I 1 or 2 suggestions from you all, and then that's what we will do and where we will go. I know Vildy really wants to see leopard. The hyena cubs are pretty much guaranteed, and look, the lions are a little bit off, but I can't 100% guarantee, but they should be around when we get there. So searching for leopard, rushing off to lions, or back to the hyena den. I'm going to carry on down the road while we're waiting for answers. It's interesting because Vildy's leaning towards leopard hunting and I'm actually leaning towards lions. But I will always lean towards lions. You guys know that. Oh, everyone's saying lions! Ha ha ha! Oh no, with a couple of leopard. Alright, majority rules. Sorry, Vildy. Sorry. Vildy says lions are just big leopards. Alright, I'm gonna get on the horn now and chat with the guys in lions, and let's see what Tristan's up to.
Well, I hope Noel gets on the radio because it sounds like lots of things are happening. What I'm up to is, you'll see shortly, I'm just in this area for a reason, and I'll tell you why I'm here in the next 2 seconds. Just got to get to the other side of this little quarry, and then we should have what I am looking for. There's a road that cuts up here where I was this morning. Where are we? Where's the road? I'm just trying to find the road now that cuts up here. It goes into Torchwood, but that's okay. It's not the worst thing because what we are looking for is not too far from this area. There we go. So that's what I was looking for. It's quite a long way away, but we should be able to get ourselves into a decent position because there is something very special that is sitting right over... Ooh, Senzo, tell me if you can get there. You got there? Good. So Senzo is going to be able to do this. Now, if you can spot what it is, I am very impressed, but there we go. Sitting on top of a termite mound. Over there is a very spotty cat. So there is Tingana, well, it looks like Tingana to me on top there. Obviously, it's quite far away and difficult to say for 100% sure, but that's where our leopard is sitting. He's sitting on top of a termite mound, and I would imagine it's a situation where he's going to hopefully at some point come down and start kind of moving into this area and start kind of coming down towards Chitra itself. But he looks as though he's a little bit on the skinnier side, which means hopefully he's going to get up and start moving. We know Tingana loves termite mounds, and the direction he's facing is great because he's facing in a direction that's going to take him towards Djuma and deeper in. Now, of course, he's got his eyes closed, and that means that he is probably fairly tired for now. But if we're patient enough with him, hopefully he will come down that mound and eventually move off in our direction or southwards towards Chitra itself. But it's amazing how well they camouflage from where they are compared to kind of his actual position now. It's absolutely incredible. He's kind of, from here it looks so easy and obvious to see him, but from the distance that I am at the moment, you would so easily drive past that and not even recognize that as a leopard. There you go. You can see that's the view I have at the moment. It is almost impossible to spot that individual. Now, somebody gave us a tip-off that they had seen some sort of sign of him here, and so we came, and there he is on top of the mound, which is very wonderful. All is right in the world. Elephants and leopard is the way to spend a day, that's for sure. That's how I feel, at least, about it. And like I say, the only reason I say it's Tingana is because, one, where we are, two, that he's got a massive, massive dewlap, and we know that the big male leopard in this area that has the massive dewlap is Tingana. Quarantine, even though he's a big boy, doesn't quite have that same sort of skin that hangs down. Also, I don't know, it just looks Tingana-ish from here. It's got that kind of rounded face that Tingana has, and like I said, that big dewlap. And so he's been missing for the last few days. I've been wondering where he's been. We haven't seen any tracks for him, any signs of him, and so I was hoping that he would come down to our area. Now that he's looking at us, you can most definitely see that that is our boy Tingana. It looks 100% like him, and so I'm hoping that when he does come down this mound that he decides not to move northwards or even westwards deeper into, or northwestwards into sort of Torchwood. He needs to come either south or sort of southwest, and that will help us a lot with what's going on. But still very cool. Either way, even if he does disappear, at least we are going to have some time with him, and he doesn't look as though he's going to be moving anytime soon. He's not yawning at this stage. He's not kind of fidgeting. He's not looking around that much. Looks as though his eyes are generally starting to kind of close, and his head dips every now and then. So I think he's going to still be on the mound for a little bit. But it is starting to get much darker. Clouds have kind of come over, which means that it's going to be a much darker evening than if it was like yesterday when we had bright sunshine. And so maybe it's going to entice him to move a little bit earlier in the day. And I wonder if maybe this is what the monkeys were alarm calling at this morning around Chitra camp. Because like I say, we're not far at all from Chitra camp. In fact, I would say 500 meters to the north, maybe a little bit more than that, let's say 700 meters north of that. And so he's definitely not moved very far today at all. And if it is him, and it's maybe what we were trying to find around the camp itself. So our instincts to come to Chitra have been rewarded somewhat. I know it's not in Chitra itself, but it's still at least somewhere. So just saying hello to Rex, who's just busy driving past, and I'm sure he says hello to all of you as well. Rex is busy driving guests out of Djuma at the moment, and so he fills in there every now and then when he needs to. Philip, you're wondering how large Hosana is in comparison to Tingana. Still not really comparable at all. And Hosana, while he is getting bigger, is still nowhere near the size of Tingana yet. Doesn't have that same bulk yet, not around the head, not around the neck or the shoulder area. So he's got a while to go, but he's catching up every day. Every day that Hosana's out, he's growing. His dewlap's getting bigger. He himself is getting bigger. And the thing is, because Hosana's been away from Karuta for the last few months, because she's disappeared, everybody kind of keeps looking at Hosana as an individual that is going to be able to challenge for territory now. Unfortunately, that's not the case. He's a still young individual. He's not even 2 years old yet. So, we can't expect him to be anywhere near the size of these big adult male leopards. He's still got a lot of growing to do. Just remember that male leopards really only reach their kind of full-grown potential when they reach 5-6 years old. And so he's got a long way to go until he's ever going to be able to kind of match Tingana size for size. The thing that's on his side is that he's far more youthful than Tingana, and so even though Tingana is slightly bigger, you're going to get a situation where Tingana is probably going to fatigue and get tired a lot quicker than what Hosana will over the next little bit. And so it's going to be interesting kind of how the next year plays out, but Hosana at this stage is still much smaller. His tracks are smaller, his body is smaller, and so he's not really in the same league just yet. The problem with Hosana, though, is he's starting to scent mark, and that's going to irritate Tingana no end if he comes across it. Luckily for Hosana, Tingana hasn't been moving around in those areas at all and has not actually, as far as I know, been anywhere near Treehouse Dam lately, and so he might not have picked up any sign of what is going on, and that means that Hosana is escaping for now, but it's only a matter of time if he is marking like that there's going to be an issue between the two of them, and Hosana is going to potentially then be pushed out by Tingana. We hope that that's not the case, but at the end of the day, like I say, he's playing a risky game, and he's doing things that ultimately are going to lead to Tingana sort of getting his attention and trying to then actively follow him, and that cub relationship with Tingana that Hosana and Tumba have had quickly goes away when he sees them scent marking and thinks that they potentially are going to be an intruder in his territory and try and be competition for females and food and those kind of things. So at the end of the day, we've got to be a little bit more careful. Well, he's got to be a bit more careful about what he does. He's not physically capable of going after somebody like Tingana just yet. Nice thing, though, is that, like I say, Tingana seems to be preoccupied with something at the moment. I don't know what it is, but something's got his attention lately, and he's spending very little time on the western parts of Djuma. I don't know if it's Gajima that's pushing him this way, or if it's quarantine encroaching on this eastern side that's keeping him very busy, or it's the Kuchava that's been in heat and those kind of things. I don't know what the situation is, but he's definitely not been patrolling the same way that he normally does. We've been seeing very little evidence of him in the western parts of Djuma. We haven't seen tracks around Impala plains and those areas like we normally do for Tingana, and he seems to be hanging around a lot on Torchwood, Chitra, even sort of the eastern side of Djuma to a degree. And so I don't know what he's up to at the moment, but I think he's feeling the pressure from quarantine and the fact that there's a young female here that has been in a situation where she's been able to mate, and he's kind of given his attention to that. Also, I suppose at the end of the day, Tundi being in this area quite a bit at the moment, she's on the eastern side of Djuma all the time, and with cubs, that might be attracting his attention as well and kind of luring him into this more eastern section for now. There's not many females in the west that he can potentially mate with at the moment. Ingrid Dam, young cub, Tiani, Inchila, those are all going to be covered by Anderson. Their area is Anderson, so he doesn't have much to look forward to on that side, so it's better for him to focus his attention where the two females are on this side that are receptive at the moment. I mean, obviously one has given birth to cubs, and the other one, well, he's been mating with and is maybe still in heat or potentially pregnant. It's a bit difficult to say at this stage. Kuchava potentially could be in a situation where she's pregnant by a month or two, and we don't know it yet. I mean, if you look at Tundi, we only sort of started noticing about a month ago, and then she gave birth fairly quickly after that. So it just depends on how things go, and obviously we'll try and kind of monitor it, but maybe she's going to come into estrus again, and that's what's keeping him down in this side of the world. Problem is he's facing the wrong way at the moment, which is not ideal. Paylan, this is an interesting question. You want to know whether leopards scent mark as much if they are dehydrated. I would imagine the answer to that is no. I would imagine they will try and go and hydrate as much as possible before they will go on a scent marking expedition. And you often find at this time of the day they go and they drink water and then they go off and they start marking territory as they go. Even if they're hunting, they do mark a little bit as they go, and it's normally after a really good drink of water. And so I would imagine the thing is if they're feeling dehydrated, the first priority is to get water, then they'll start to scent mark from there. But I mean, I don't know if that is always the case. I mean, at the end of the day, there might be situations that they're on the way to water and they'll use their last remaining resources, if you want to call it that, to be able to mark territory as they go towards water. But the thing is in this area is that there's no leopard that's ever really dehydrated in this particular section. There's so much water in the Sabi Sands that leopards really don't have to roam very far for water. If you think about where we are now, we've got Chitra Dam here, but just south of Chitra Dam is a place called Jack's Pan on a nets. Then there's a nets dam, then there's Cheetah Plains Pan, then there's in Coral Pan, and then in Torchwood there's a number of pans there. Then there's Twin Dams, there's Buffelshoek Dam. So there's water everywhere within a very small radius that allows these leopards to always find something. So the leopards here are very fortunate. They don't have to worry about dehydrating, and therefore it'd be interesting to know how much more they scent mark here than maybe areas that are a lot drier and more arid, like in the Kalahari, whether those leopards only scent mark a little bit less or less frequent to what we see from this male. I would be interested to know, and I think you'd probably find that there's a very different amount and frequency between there and here in terms of scent marking procedures. But I think we're going to have to be patient with him. At the end of the day, we're going to have to just do a situation where we're going to have to sit and see what he does. I mean, he is far away. It's not the best view that we've currently got of him, and so we're going to have to just wait and see how he goes. But while we're sitting here, I just thought it would be a good idea to show you guys this elephant and what it looks like. Sorry, I just got to try and quickly sort this out for you. Okay, there we go. Now, I was talking earlier about the blue-eyed elephant that we used to see in the southern parts of the Sabi Sands. So that is what it used to look like. If you have a look at that, look at the color of those eyes. They're like an icy blue kind of color. They remind me a bit of the Game of Thrones characters that you see all over the place these days. And it is really quite amazing to see. It's freaky when you see this animal, because this animal does not kind of look normal, and the way it looks at you, you're a bit like, that's a bit kind of a chilly stare, but amazing nonetheless, and really, really, really cool to see. So it's not something that you're going to see every day. I don't know what's happened to this elephant. I mean, at this stage, it was a sub-adult. You can see it was quite a large elephant already. It was, I would say, probably around 4 or 5 years old at this stage. His tusks were just starting to come out. You can see the tusks just there. And so it's obviously must be somewhere in the Kruger Park system. I hope that it didn't fall foul to some sort of predator or die or anything like that. But isn't that just the most incredible looking animal? I think so anyway. I think it's mesmerizing to see eyes of that color on an elephant, to me anyway. Right. So that's my elephant story. I hope you guys all liked it. I thought it was very cool. I don't know. Just saying hello to some of the guys that are driving past. We ultimately are on the main road, and that means that many a vehicle is going to come past and many a vehicle is going to look at us in a very funny way as to what we're looking at, because that leopard is so far off that it's going to be very difficult for us to explain to anyone why it's there. Now, while I kind of ponder as to what we're going to do with this leopard and where we're going to park, and hopefully he does decide to move towards our side and southwards and onto our area, and hopefully we'll have a really great finish with him. But while we do that, I believe Noelle has made her way to a rather interesting sighting of her own that is full with cuteness.
Our cheeky Styx Pride has decided to come north from our southern boundary and pop up at Twin Dams. Yay! So excited. And we have the youngest set of cubs busy nursing on Mum. Tula Ann, are you watching today, sweetie? Because Tula Ann, these cubs remind me of you after your brilliant question about their kitty claws. So there you are, sweetie. That's your scene for the day. So you remember the last time we were with them a few nights ago? They were active while everyone else was sleeping, and then they went in and they had a nurse, then they had a little bit of a rest, and then they started moving again. And then we even have some of the other cubs, some of the older cubs nursing on their mum. Sorry, Vildy. There we go. Mom's picked her head up a little bit just to keep an eye on the older cub coming past. You never know. Remember we've chatted about allo suckling, and sometimes different mums will suckle with different young. But usually, that's your screenshot for the day, everybody, right there. Ears forward, head up, leg up, cub suckling. Beautiful. But when she's suckling her own cubs and then the other mom's suckling their cubs, there's really no need for the allo suckling. I've seen it more often where if one of the sisters goes off, or aunties or grandmoms goes off and leaves another female with the cubs and doesn't come back for a couple of days because she's busy hunting, then a little bit of that. I've also seen it with where mums pass away and then some of the cubs are taken care of, but it's not always the case. Again, it depends on the individual. So you'll remember as well, if you were watching with us a few nights ago, as the females were moving off down the inflow of twin dams, you could see the size of the teats. So you've got the female with the eldest set of cubs, and her teats have pretty much dried up. You've got the female with the middle set of cubs, and she's the one that's nursing to the left there, and her teats were sort of a little bit full. And then this one with the tiny little cubs is the mum that had the very, very full teats, because these cubs definitely still need their milk. Oh, there we go. Oh, she's had enough. She's watching something as well. Oh, there's Impala coming up. That's what's happening. She can see Impala that are coming up on the outflow side of the dam to drink. This is super interesting. I have a feeling we might get a little bit of action here. We're just going to have to stick with me. We might not get anything. We might get something. Hello, welcome, welcome. We've got the Styx Pride here. They've just seen some Impala. We're live on whatever platform you can see us. You just have to make little comments to ask some questions, but I'm going to speak really low. My cameraman, Villy, is saying that he wants me to move around, but one is we're just busy linking over to you guys, and then as well, I don't want to create any noise that's going to scare these Impala from moving the way they're going. So Vildy is going to have to do some amazing moves with his camera, because there are some younger cubs, not these little ones, but some ones that are older than this, that are in full view of these Impala, and they're trying really hard not to be twitchy, but they're definitely looking. And this mum, look at all of them. These ones don't care. They have no idea what's going on, but their mum definitely knows what's going on. Let's see, maybe these Impala come up, maybe they don't, maybe those cubs give it away. You see that. So you can see one of the older cubs, and you can see it staring at that Impala. There's a showdown. This Impala can tell that something's potting. And we're just going to hold off from moving our vehicle and... oh, nope. The jig is up. The jig is up. Oh. All right, okay, so we're going to position the vehicle around a little bit and just get a better view. We've also have other people in the sighting that are with us, and they also want to get a better view. So we're going to let them move first, and they're going to move around and angle themselves, and then we will angle ourselves. She can still see the Impala. She's still keen. Another youngster is keen. But these cubs really have no idea. Yeah. So they get their nourishment from mother's milk, and so the idea of an Impala for them, they're like, yeah, I've got no clue what's potting. And we're just gonna move around a little bit like this, and just gonna check that you guys can still see and everybody's okay. Fantastic. And then here we go. Bildy will work his camera magic for you. So sadly, no hunt, but this is still uber cute. I still have a brief visual of those Impala, but they're moving away. They saw that older cub, and they're like, not gonna happen. Now it's also interesting because we did chat about larger prides of lions and them not necessarily going for something like an impala, but the mom that's looked the most interested with these tiny cubs, she needs to feed on a lot of good protein to keep herself well nourished for giving milk to her babies. So she will do things like go after impala, but specifically impala lambs this time of year, and is a bit more keen to do that than say her counterparts within the pride. Because these older cubs are nursing for a very long time. They're probably falling asleep there. Yeah, I hear from Chris that everybody's saying, "Oh, so cute." I'm also doing, "Oh, so cute" in my head. Oh, giving up. Let's go smell my cousin brother over there. Oh my goodness, so Matt, you're asking when will these cubs go on their first hunt? Matt, all three litters within the sticks right now are all way too young to be doing any hunting. They will only start properly hunting with the females, and if the males are around, because males also hunt, when they are about 1.5 to 2 years old. What you will start to see with some of the older cubs as they get a bit bigger is that mom or auntie will catch something like a baby impala or a warthog and not kill it, and then let the youngsters surround it and practice their skills. But that'll be for the eldest set. So the eldest set, I think, if I remember correctly, we said they were, oh, here's one of the other mums. We said that they were probably about 8 months old, 8 to 10 months old, and then we had 6-month-old ones, which is this one here, and then we have the 3-month-old ones. Listen, can you hear that behind us? It's contact calling. That sound can travel up to 4 kilometers in the right condition, that contact calling, that ooh, ooh. Remember we talked about how they do the reaffirming of the social bond and they go and touch and groom? We might get a little bit of that now, but because of her calling, the little ones that are over with their mom are super interested at what their auntie is up to. Those ones are still nursing. They're like, they couldn't care less. Lisa, yeah, you're saying this is so wonderful. What a privilege to watch. I completely agree. I completely agree with you. Lions interacting is special. Listen to these sounds. Can we hear them? So notice how Mom didn't want to play. Actually, sorry. Yeah, Mom didn't want to play. Now he's playing with his little cousin there. Now, the mom of the youngest cubs will keep an eye on those ones to make sure that they don't do anything to hurt each other. All right, Action Broadcast viewers, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed those beautiful little lion moments, and we hope to see you soon with some more action when we have it. Uber cuteness. I have no other word for this. Sorry guys, I'm busy holding the brake down so the car doesn't go backwards. I just want to come up a little bit while I'm busy repositioning. Tristan has Tingana. Let's go see him.
I do indeed. He's still sitting at top of his termite mound. We've slightly moved a little bit. I know there's a few branches in front of his face, but it was just a little bit of a closer view than what we had a little bit earlier, and we can just see his coat shimmering in the background. You can see his tail over the top, and every now and then he kind of looks as though he's sleepy, and then he pops his head up all of a sudden and looks as very wide-eyed and awake like that. You see, he's kind of looking as though he's going to start moving. So I hope that we're going to see a yawn out of him soon, and hopefully something like a little baby impala comes out, because if that happens, I think he'll be down the mound like a shot and moving towards our area. So that's what I'm hoping for at the end of the day. Whether or not that's going to happen, I'm not quite sure, but he definitely looks as though he's fairly awake and fairly kind of attentive to something that's going on. At this time of the day, this fire break is a great place to go, because the fire break is an area where a lot of the impalas and warthogs and various other things will move in, and we'll try and come into this area to be able to sort of spend the night and try and get out of the way of predators, and that's going to fall right into the trap of this particular male leopard. Now, it's quite funny because I'm watching some guests that have just come along. They can't traverse to the north of us, much like we can't, but they don't have a massive, powerful camera that can go all the way there. None of them can actually see it. It's quite funny to see their reactions as they try and look for this particular leopard on top of the mound. In fact, they've just driven off altogether because they can't see it really at all, and the guys just have decided they're not going to look too much. No, I think they're going to move off. It's not going to be great. Now, Rexon is going to come past, so I do apologize if there is a vehicle coming past in the next little bit. Hopefully he'll go behind me. He might. We're not quite sure. He might go in front, he might go behind. I'm not 100% sure, but either way, I'm sure he'll make a plan. I'll just say hello to him. Hi, Rex. There we go. So Rex has just gone past now. Now, I wonder if he's maybe going to decide to move now. I think there's going to be a situation. There's a couple cars that have left him, and so maybe now the road is clear for him to start coming down and actually moving in our direction. Now, Bola, you're wondering if a male and female leopard would fight? I don't think so for territory. At the end of the day, male leopards know female leopards are a source of mating, and so they're going to try their very best to mate as much as they can with the female and not actually fight and kill them. And females also know that they're completely outweighed by a male leopard. They're completely outgunned. A male leopard is just far too large for them and is not going to allow them any chance to kind of be able to fight with them. Bless you, Senzo. Don't worry. Senzo's got the sniffles this afternoon, and so the chances of a male and female leopard fighting are very slim, unless it's over cubs, and that's obviously not a territorial dispute. It's over cubs, and therefore she's protecting cubs. That's a different story. But territorially, no, you're not going to find that situation. Females want a big, strong, dominant male in their area because they want him to protect the cubs if she mates with him, and at the same time, males want as many females as possible in their particular area because they want to try and get a situation. So Chris is one of the other guides here. He's he decided just to get out and give Senzo a bit of a fright, so he got out behind us here and just made a sound of a leopard and grabbed at the back and gave everyone a bit of a fright, which is quite entertaining. But anyway, Tingana seems completely oblivious to it. He's not too stressed about it, other than the fact that we drove over they drove over a stump. Patingi looks as though he's very wide-eyed. I'm hoping, like I say, that he is going to get up and move. I know it's a very obscured view, but at least it's a view. And typical of him, it's our last-minute leopard once again. He's kind of appeared in the last half an hour of drive. But while we sit and see whether or not he's actually going to decide to move and get off this mound and come towards our area, let's go back across to Noel, who I'm sure is loving every minute of those little Styx cubs because they are absolutely adorable.
Tristan, you are correct. I am loving absolutely every single minute of this. You know how much I love lions, and you know how much I love baby lions, especially cheeky ones like that one. And Tristan, you are the lord of last-minute leopards. You definitely are. That is your shtick. I think we'll do that. So, Tris, you stick with the leopards, I'll stick with the lions, and then we'll just rock Juma that way. How does everybody feel about that? I'm happy with it. Very happy with it. Yeah, Kirst agrees. I like that. Oh, shame. I'm sorry. How can you not love this? Alana, you're asking a very good question. You're asking what ages constitute a cub, a sub-adult, an adult. So, Alana, the way that I was taught, and different people have different ways of doing this, but what I was taught is you have an infant, a juvenile, a sub-adult, and an adult. So a sub-adult is anything from about a year, year and a half. I'm doing with lions now, yeah? About a year, year and a half to, let's say 2.5 years, pushing 3. Then an infant is sort of firstborn. A juvenile will go from about 6 months. I'm gonna use 6 months to about a year. And then the sub-adult we talked about, and the adult over that. So that's roughly the demarcations. Now, the reason why I gave a little bit of differences with the months there and all of that is that I used to do research, and I used to do research with different researchers. So they also had different standards, and then I've also read some papers where they've also had different standards. So when you're dealing with it, that's basically it. So infant is from sort of birth until about 3 months old, and then we would use the word cub from about from birth until, I would use it until they're 6 months old, and then I personally would switch over to juvenile. But I know other people who use the word cub up until they're a proper sub-adult, around about a year and a half old. So that also depends on the use. So you also have different guides, and then with us, different presenters using different terms for different ages. So if that, I know that was very long-winded again. I'm sorry, guys. I am not good with the concise answers. It always turns into a big discussion. But Alana, I hope that helped clear it up a little bit for you. If not, please let me know, and I can reword or go a little bit more in depth if you would like. Teak, you're asking, are leopard cubs and cheetah cubs as playful as lion cubs? Absolument. They are just as playful. I watched a few years ago 2 leopard cubs that were about 4 months old. Mom was walking and scent marking, and she was walking slowly, and they were playing. They kept running ahead of her and then running up trees and then hanging from the branches until she passed them and then dropping, kind of like, look at me, Mom, look at me, look at me, and then rolling around with each other. And then eventually Mom got into the mix as well and played with them. Just a couple months ago, I saw a female leopard with sort of 3-month-old cubs, and the cubs and her were running and climbing trees and jumping out of the trees and chasing each other across a damn wall, and they're super, super playful. Teak, where the viewer who was asking a question, Teak, that you were just asking now, where are you from? The reason why I'm asking is my younger brother's name is Teak. So I'm wondering if my sneaky, cheeky little younger brother is asking me questions through the YouTube or the Twitter. Ah, okay, almost. So not my cheeky little brother. Alright, so the adults have started yawning a bit every now and then, and we've got a bit of movement out of them. The cubs, as you can see, are moving every which way. So I am hoping that we're going to get the whole pride up and moving shortly. Possibly down for a drink, although that one keeps looking in the direction that those Impala moved off to. There's lots of guinea fowl making lots of noise in the background. Alarming for our lions. And then our little cubs are getting super interested. We've switched over to our IR, so our infrared. Nice little black and white hue there. The cloud cover is making everything darker earlier this evening. Ooh, and I can hear some thunder rolling in the background. These guinea fowl are having an absolute fit right now. Can you hear them? Basically, they're going, oh my goodness, it's a lion, it's a lion, it's a lion, it's a lion. All the adult lions are going, yeah. The really little ones are super keen, and then the midway, middle cubs are also super, well, not as super keen, but are also keen. Let's see what happens. I don't think the guinea, look, they are called a confusion of guinea fowl, but I don't think they're that dumb that they're going to come right up the side. And then we've got all this brush packing on the side of the dam wall to help with anti-erosion. So the cubs are using the brush packing as a way to be able to watch in interest with those guinea fowl, but also stay back a bit because they don't necessarily want to do anything that could hurt themselves. All right, well, Tristan is still with Tangana, who apparently is sitting beautifully on a shadulu, a termite mound. So let's head back to him, and we'll stick with these lions and see you in a bit.
Well, he's still just sitting very patiently looking around. I think he's waiting for something to come across towards where he is, and then he'll actively look for it. But unfortunately, he's that far away that no matter what we do, even with infrared, we really don't have a great visual of him anymore. It's starting to get quite dreary and dingy, and so I think what we're going to do is probably just leave him here. I don't think he's going to come down anytime soon. He's starting to kind of bow his head a little bit and starting to rest, and so I think it's that time where we're going to probably just let him carry on with his sleep, and hopefully tomorrow morning he's going to be moving towards Djuma side. At least it's kind of the direction he's facing is westwards, and so he might head in that direction. The problem with Tingana, as we all know, is the guy can do a 20 laps around Djuma and then be gone in the morning. He just doesn't stop moving when he wants to, and you can see he's just dropped his head down to sleep now. So I think we're going to take our leave and let Tingana have a good rest. There's some other vehicles that are there and one or two that still want to come, and so we're not going to block it up anymore for those guys and let them have at least a good chance to get nice and close and have a little good look. But how wonderful an afternoon have we had? It's been we had a little random lion sighting that Noel is now really kind of getting into and having a really wonderful time with. We've had great elephants, we had a collared pratincoll, we've had woodland kingfishers. There's been everything this afternoon. It's been absolutely wonderful. It's certainly a very good afternoon for me. I wish Tingana had come a little closer, but it still wasn't the worst view. We've had worse, that's for sure, and at least we had a nice decent kind of view of him during some decent light where we could see that he was actually a leopard and not just a tail in the bushes like Hosanna had the other day. Right, I'm going to start making my way home. It's that time of the evening evening where it's time to start heading back before any rain comes or anything like that. And while I do that, let's go back across to Noel and those very, very cute Styx cubs, and let's see if the females are maybe deciding to get up and start moving for the evening.
Tristan, don't be such a wuss. The rain's closer to me than it is to you, and it's not coming just yet. You're just sad because Tingana went into an area where you can't see him. Boo-hoo. That's how I felt the other day. But that's okay, Tristan. I will stick with our Styx pride and the uber cuteness that is all of these cubs. And mums are starting to move and starting to twitch. The wind has died down because, as you said before, the rain is going to start coming in, but I think we have a good 20 minutes before the actual rain comes in. So don't worry, everybody. We'll be able to finish off our show with these lovely lions. Now, I was hoping that those Impala would forget about what scared them and come back, but it seems like that hasn't happened. And there's been no wildebeest who have come this way, and no buffalo, and no giraffe, and no zebra. So my thought, because these females do not look like they've eaten anything big at all recently, my thought is that they are going to head off and hunt very shortly. It's just taking them a little bit while longer than normal because it was so hot and humid today. Kyle, you're asking what prey species the lions are taking most at this time of year. So Kyle, each pride will work differently than any other pride and will have specific prey species that they prefer and know how to catch over others. For instance, in Kahuma's absolutely obsessed with buffalo. The buffalo particular area have moved off, so then they'll go for things that are still large, possibly a zebra, possibly a wildebeest, possibly a giraffe, but there's going to be one of those that they prefer over others. So Kyle, for me, I've recently started working in this area, so I don't know these lions as well as I would like to know them. I am getting to know them. With a pride this size, but remember they've got all of these cubs they have to feed, but the females need to also be able to feed and to produce milk. So they're going to be going for anything they can catch at the moment. One of the other vehicles that was with us in this sighting a couple nights ago, one of the females caught a diker and ate it because she needed it to top off her energy levels because of all the milk that she's shelling out. She didn't share it with anybody. But they are going to try and take down something that's larger. So they're going to be looking for things like full-grown zebra, full-grown wildebeest, and giraffe. And again, it's not really time of year dependent on what they're going to go for. It's more on preference. But that being said, because we have all the lambs this time of year coming out, they will go for those big proteins. Easy proteins, sorry, excuse me there. All right, so amazing drive yet again. Tomorrow morning we will probably be looking for these Styx. We might go look for Tingana again. It depends. We might look for something else. We will have to wait and see. I will definitely be out in the morning. It wouldn't surprise me if you see Steph or maybe Tristan as well. So thank you so much for myself, Tristan, Steph, all the film crew, FC, and everyone involved, and we'll see you tomorrow.